All right. We are on.
Okay.
Please stand for the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting on February 23rd?
Yeah.
Sylvia and Linda, questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstained? The minutes are approved. Do we have any public comments on agenda items? Okay. And so next is Carlin with us. Where is she?
Right there.
Oh, there we
Hello.
go. Hey, Carlin, how you doing? Welcome,
Good, how
welcome
are you?
back.
Thank you so much for having me. So today I have a few updates on Vestal High School events. So first of all, our National Honor Society is hard at work starting a card drive for local healthcare workers. So we're going to be partnering with elementary schools in the Vestal district and hopefully creating a lot of cards to thank our healthcare workers, especially during the pandemic. Additionally, the student government is still in the process of working on the lip sync battle that I mentioned earlier. And this is something that's going to be a lot of fun for a lot of students and teachers. We've had a lot of teachers already sign up and we're hoping for more student involvement in the coming weeks. So that's something we're definitely looking forward to. The AMC American Math competition results came back and two Vestal High School students, Grace Joe and Gustav Gebbe, have advanced to the next level in the competition. So as a Vestal High School community, we're super proud of them and we're excited to root them on and cheer for them as they go to the next level of the competition in I think a week or so. And then finally, the fall sports season has started up last week, and that's involved a lot of Vestal High School students. So everyone's really excited to get back to their sports and have the opportunity to have a season especially during this time. So that's all I've prepared for you today. Thank you so much for having me, as always.
Hey, Carlin, before I let you go here, I think we have some congratulations in order. So I see that you have won the Tri-Cities Women's Club Youth Poetry and Short Story Contest. Made the front page for us at this point in time. And so, can you tell us a little bit about your poem and how that went for you?
Sure. So I submitted a poem in honor of my grandfather who passed away. It was a tribute that I'd written for him. And so I submitted that to the competition, and I was very honored to receive that award. So thank you so much.
Well, congratulations on that. And I understand that you're moving on to the New York State Federation of Women's Clubs. It's advancing at this point in time. Is that my understanding?
Yes.
So congratulations, and it's a great job, and we're all very proud of you. And we wish you all the luck on that. All right. So good luck on that.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Hey, you too. All right. All right. Next, for the board president's report, I had attended the healthcare consortium that was held on this past Friday, and so that was a Zoom meeting, and they had reported on the continued savings from reduced claims, across the consortium for the health insurance. Mostly, it was attributed to fewer ER visits and hospitalizations, which they attributed to the pandemic. The big news was how the consortium is working on incorporating an Excelis Medicare Advantage plan option for retirees. They're still working on that, and the details are still kind of being put together. They believe that they can offer some significant savings for retirees in the future if they can make this work out. And there was a brief reporting on ME and OEGO leaving the consortium. They felt that it wasn't necessarily the wisest choice for the two districts to leave the consortium, but they didn't feel that it was going to have a significant impact on the group itself for the time being. And as long as things continue to stay as they are, they feel that the consortium will continue to stay as strong and as viable as it has been up to this point in time. So for that was kind of the gist of the healthcare consortium update. And then Friday morning, there was the superintendent evaluation training. Linda, John, Jeff, and myself, we had attended that here and we watched that via Zoom. We had hoped it would be a little bit more deeply involved in the web-based superintendent evaluation process, but it didn't really quite go into that as much as we'd like to have. But I guess we're going to look into some trainings for that in the future because we will be moving to a web-based evaluation process in the future. And so that's something that'll be coming up. The training focused on the 5 standards that we evaluate a superintendent on, which is vision, culture, instructional leadership, operations, resource and personnel management, board governance and policy, communication and community relations, and ethical leadership. We believe that the web-based program will streamline the process and make it easier for everyone involved. So John, Linda, do you guys have any thoughts or anything you wanted to share?
No, Linda, are you trying to speak?
Go ahead, John.
So, yeah, I was really happy to go to that webinar, and I'm happy that we're going to go forward with that type of evaluation. I think it'll be much better.
Might as well go, John.
Okay, sorry, Linda, you froze up a bit. Yeah, thanks, Mario. As well as you and Linda, I attended. I think it's a great tool. It's used throughout the state. Provides a lot of rigor to the process, and I think it avoids the difficult task of trying to consolidate all those inputs and makes that job a little bit easier. So everyone will have a chance to provide input, and the tool provides a safekeeping for everyone's input. So looking forward to seeing it roll out.
And, and I'm sorry, before I get too far, Matt, I don't know if you were able to participate in the healthcare consortium, and I didn't know if you had any comments that you needed to address on that also. I forgot to.
Yeah, no problem. No, actually, I had trouble logging in from my laptop. It was rebooting on me a bunch of times, so I didn't get a chance to actually log into the meeting, but I did catch up with another local business official. So basically what you had covered is what we need to share with the board tonight.
Hey, thanks, Matt. All right, so with that, we move on to liaisons. Do I have any reports from liaisons?
I have something to add. The middle school is working on a program called Mindfulness, and it is designed to help both the teachers and the students deal with their anxiety. And this is being done by Melissa Rosa, and it is only done for 3 or 4 minutes in the morning every other week, but it is a start to look at what we are doing as far as our mental health is concerned.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Any other reports? Okay, with that, I'd like to take a moment to just kind of read some thoughts that I've been kind of mulling over here in the recent past. It's been a relatively tumultuous time, for a number of reasons, and I wanted to kind of express some of the thoughts that I've been considering over the recent past. And so, if you'll allow me, I'm gonna read some things here. I'd like to address some of the more frequent observations and concerns we've heard over the past year since the onset of the pandemic. A major critique that's often been cited is people reporting that when they reach out to the district or to the board, their calls or emails are ignored and not addressed. I know that I've personally replied to a number of emails, and I can't think of anyone I haven't spoken to who's made the effort to contact me. I've heard the same remarks from everyone here, and the folks at the district have shown me the email responses they've sent. So I can't tell if the complaints come before some of those writing got a response or because the response they received was unsatisfactory. What I ask is for anyone who has received no response to an inquiry, please let us know so that we can address it. We've also heard multiple notes of frustration regarding our posted frequently asked questions. This issue has been more difficult to sort out than we'd anticipated. We all agree that it isn't ideal, and we've taken steps to find more intuitive ways to get our message out to the community. We believe we've responded to each of the concerns that have been addressed. We understand that our answers don't satisfy certain individual concerns, but considering that we are serving nearly 4,000 students and personnel, it would be impossible to operate without certain compromises. Despite the competing interests, we feel we are doing the best that we can for our venerated Vestal community. I feel comfortable making this observation because I have people I care for and love working at every level within this district, and I know firsthand the sacrifices they've made to promote and advance our district through this harrowing period. I've heard various observations regarding cooperation between the board, administration, unions, staff and faculty, and our students. All I can say is it's easy to single out unfortunate individual interactions, but overall, I couldn't be prouder of the level of concern and cooperation I've witnessed and heard about with everyone involved. Frankly, in the 7 years I've been on the board, I've never seen this level of effort and sacrifice made by everyone involved in their efforts to educate and care for students. I know there are reports of conflicts in other regions and districts in the news. Those reports are not a reflection of what's happening at Vestal. I couldn't be more proud of how everyone has rallied to keep Vestal the premier district we all know it to be. Our reopening plan and our ever-evolving process as we progress through the year was and continues to be designed with coordination of our various focus committees. The level of planning and coordination it takes to make any decision in a school district is staggering. We've opted to take a conservative approach in every decision we've been able to control. Our aim has been to focus on safety for our students and community, to maintain as consistent and predictable a schedule as possible, ensuring that our families have the ability to plan around our schedule and to be flexible as new issues arise. Our most recent crisis with transportation is a perfect example of one of the countless issues that can happen in an instant while we're focusing on trying to get our students in the buildings. We needed to find a way to equitably meet the needs regarding the transportation of each of our students while trying diligently to minimize the disruption the crisis would cause the community as a whole. Considering the short amount of time provided to the administration and the options available, it turned into a nightmare scenario that didn't resolve itself as quickly as everyone would have hoped for. These are the types of issues that the district faces on a daily basis. Normally, the community doesn't notice because our competent district staff have better time to coordinate things. But when a crisis drops on a Sunday afternoon, there's no way to sort these things out adequately. Vestal has a reputation for affluence and resources. What has been a growing concern over the last several years within the district is the growing number of families who live with less financial certainty. Many of our decisions are made understanding that a chain is only as strong as its most vulnerable link. We cannot overlook anyone, especially during times of crisis. Consequently, sometimes what looks on the surface like an easy solution doesn't take into account the needs of those who might otherwise be overlooked. Vestal is a community that cares, and we aim to represent that quality in every choice that we make. In addition to caring for things within our district, it takes coordination of the district departments, families, the greater Vestal community, our districts, and government at every level in decision-making. This is an issue that's plagued our district from the start. Our district is filled with dedicated staff and faculty who are regularly working to operate efficiently and effectively. Routinely, the administration makes decisions based on understandings it's had from coordination or policy from sources outside the district. These agreements and understandings often change unexpectedly, leaving the district in an awkward or unfortunate role, having to change its plan without warning. We understand how frustrating this can be to our community, and we share in your frustration as it compromises the plans the district makes in its effort to meet the needs of our Vestal and Appalachian communities. Early in the school year, certain voices in the district expressed concerns that our reopening plan might be too conservative. As we work to formalize our four-phase plan in the 2 short weeks the state provided us to design it, we began to see the results from schools opening and then immediately closing down in the southern states due to what seemed like less thoughtfulness in their approach. From that point on, most of us felt certain we had taken the right approach in our cautious and thoughtful plan. Every day we review our position and reevaluate how we should advance as we aim for returning the district to full regular attendance. In addition to that goal, we are constantly reviewing lessons learned to ensure we maintain the high quality we feel we provide our students, despite the constraints caused by the pandemic. Also, we are keeping track of the lessons learned to see what new procedures we plan to shed once the pandemic lifts and which ones will be folded into our new normal. In the spirit of describing why we've adopted such a strong conservative approach, we felt that consistency and safety were two of the most important problems to focus on. In terms of consistency, we recognize that families have the awesome burden of planning their lives around personal schedules and responsibilities in these difficult times. We work to ensure that families could depend on us on as few volatile schedule disruptions as possible. Further, we recognize that students and younger people are at a lower risk of severe illness due to the COVID-19, but many of the older loved ones in their lives are not. Our perspective is not exclusively to protect students' health and well-being. Many students have people in their lives who may be vulnerable, and we care about them too. Considering how we have been able to avoid fewer scheduling disruptions than several of our regional colleagues, and how we've been able so far to report that there have been no reported cases of transmission of COVID-19 among our student population, most of us believe we've made the right decision and feel we should continue working with what we believe to be a solid plan. Modern schools are designed to function best when all students are in person, in class, 5 days a week. The pandemic has created a circumstance that makes it immeasurably harder for everyone involved to teach students. Everyone at the district, the board, the administration, faculty, and staff desperately want students in the buildings. The extra work brought on by the pandemic and the stress we all feel can be overwhelming. So far, we've lost the joy of activities like sports, arts, and clubs. Teachers have to adjust to teaching in multiple venues and media, which they aren't trained to do and have had to learn or teach themselves. Staff have had to take extra precautions and assume extra responsibilities above their regular intense requirements. The administration has had the thankless job of making impossible decisions and trying to balance those decisions with available resources, working within the financial constraints, incorporating decisions while still meeting regulatory requirements, balancing needs from those who insist on more in-person instruction versus those who insist on greater focus on health and safety, and being nimble enough to adjust when new guidance or requirements are handed down from outside authorities. I'd love to say that we've managed these trying times flawlessly, but that's not even remotely true. As I mentioned, we've lost many of the student activities that make learning a well-rounded experience for our celebrated Vestal students. We've lost resources like substitute teachers, local businesses that serve our staff and students, and worst of all, we've lost invaluable staff. This cursed pandemic has been devastating, and it isn't over yet. Though we seem to get reports that it's easing, that doesn't mean that it's over or that it won't get worse again. The one thing I feel certain I can say about it is that we are all in this mess together. So thank you for your time. And on that, I pass it on to the superintendent.
Great, thank you. Quick update on our COVID numbers. We currently have 2 positive cases for students, 1 for teachers, and 1 for staff, for a total of 4 positive COVID cases here in the district. The cumulative for the year since September, that brings the total to 183 positive cases that we've dealt with this year. The quarantine numbers, students, we have currently 42 current quarantine students, 2 teachers, 3 staff members, 1 clerical, for a total of 48 quarantined individuals. The total cumulative for the year since September is 1,386 individuals. Again, that's the numbers that we have dealt with so far this year. The county has reported the numbers have actually started going up here in Broome County, so we are keeping an eye on that on a day-to-day basis. So we'll keep you informed of that. Having said that, again, going back to the transportation situation from a week ago Sunday, The district was notified Sunday afternoon that we had at least four bus drivers that were being quarantined. After the district gets that notice from the county, we have to do the contact tracing. Where was that driver? Who were they associated with in the time period provided by the county health department? At the same time, we have to, in that situation, get a hold of our transportation office and figure out what can we do for our bus runs. We had crossed the line with the latest bus drivers being quarantined, where we could not provide all the regular AM, PM runs for our students. As a result, we had to come up with a revised plan. Initially that was to start on the east side of the district on Monday, Tuesday for our pickups and drop-offs, and be remote on the west side, elementary. On Thursday, Friday, we reversed that. We were to pick up our kids on the west side of the district, and the east side schools, African Road and Vestal Hills, would be full remote. Now, that was unpopular, and we got many complaints that we got the notice out too late. I'll apologize, but when we get the notice late in the afternoon and the work that we have to do, we put that notice out as soon as we could. It might not be timely for everybody, but the alternative was that we not put the notice out. We do it the next day when kids might be standing at a bus stop waiting for a bus that's not coming. So I apologize for the timing, but we try to tell people we are dealing with an imperfect situation here. We ask everybody to be flexible and understanding in these situations. All day Monday, we spent hours throughout the day calling the county, the colleges, Bernie Bus, Schaefer, Serafini, and we called the surrounding school districts, anybody with a spare bus driver that we could use for a few days. And just as an idea how tight this is, not just for us, but for the county itself, for all the school districts, there wasn't one spare bus driver. So, we were living with the situation. We were able to devise a new plan once we got through all those checklists, and we did open up the schools for those kids that could make it. Parents were gracious enough to deliver kids to school for those days. So again, it's a real tough situation. We did the best we could with what we had. So next, we will go to a budget update. Mr. Bechtel, I'll turn it over to you. You have a presentation for us?
Yep, I've got some slides that I'm going to share with everybody tonight. A minute, and I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so tonight we're just going to go over some of the current assumptions with the budget. So as of tonight, we're looking at where we're at with some revenues and expenditure projections going into 2021-22. Right now, our projected budget is looking, including the state aid that we have, tax levy limit at a 1.27% increase, and other revenues that go in. We're looking at a budget gap of $893,000. We're looking at moving forward without cutting any programs or any materials and supplies or any of that stuff from the budget from 2021 to 21-22. So right now, what we're looking at with what we're seeing from state aid and our tax levy limit, we're about a $900,000 budget gap. So that's a budget to budget increase of about $1.7 million. So about 2.1% on expenditures. So in the revenues, we'll take a look at these. Again, 1.27% is the tax levy limit this year. That would bring the tax levy up to from 48.6 million to 49.2. Very slight change in pilots. Those are planned. They are expected in the pilot schedules. Other revenue at this point is about where we would expect it. State aid, you'll see, though, is down. And state aid is down primarily due to less students that are attending alt ed this year. High cost aid going down because just based on the landscape of this year's educational model across the state, there's less services that are going through, and there's more students that may not hit that high cost threshold. So we're seeing that down, and plus some expense driven aid. So expense driven aid could be BOCES aid, or it could be transportation aid. So we've had a lot of discussions about transportation aid, that there's some questions on what will be aidable and what will not. So right now we're budgeting at what we think may not be aidable. And so we're seeing a decrease in the state aid figure. So this is no different than what we looked at the last presentation, where we compared where we thought we were with state aid. We'll see a significant increase on the next line item, though, and that's for appropriated reserves. So appropriated reserves are using the funds in our reserve funds. So this is a budgetary planning item that we have put into place over a number of years, where we have established reserve funds. We've funded those reserves for times where we may need them to be able to balance a budget, where we don't want to go cut staff, cut programs, cut materials and supplies out of classrooms. So this year, we've got an increase in our use of reserves, and that is primarily related to our plan of offsetting the expenses in the unemployment expenses. So we use the unemployment reserve, and then also the employee retirement system. So our contributions for the employee retirement system would be covered by our reserve funds this year as well. So that's a look at reserves right now, and we are comfortable with the use of those because it still leaves us in a good position for next year, where we believe the budget will be even tighter than this year, and the year beyond that, where it could be even more tighter than that. So finally, appropriated fund balance. Appropriated fund balance is funding from this year's budget that is used as a revenue planning item for next year's budget. The 1.5 million is an annual amount. That is one that we have used over the last number of years, and that is the target that we go with. This helps us to get the year off started with some funds on hand to be able to pay for salaries, expenditures needed over the summer when we don't start collecting our tax levy until the end of September. So one thing that we want to talk about, though, is a way to maybe close this gap. One of the things that we may be able to use is our CARES Act funding that came in from March of last year. The eligibility to use those funds ran from March of 2020 to September of 2022. So rather than using our balance, which was about $430,000, we could apply it towards that $900,000 gap. So you'll see an increase here in the other revenue. In the previous slide, if I go back, we had about 1.5 million. If we use this strategy of deferring our CARES Act, the usage of those funds into the following year, we're looking at about 1.9 million in our other revenue, and that would bring our budget gap down from the 900,000 to about 464,000. So that's something that we're exploring closely, and we do believe that we are going to move forward with deferring those funds to next year in order to offset that current budget gap, and be able to keep the tax levy limit at the 1.27. So on to expenditures, about what we would expect normally out of expenditures for professional and support staff. Contractual, we're trying to hold contractual and equipment and material supplies steady right now going into the next year, not cutting anything. BOCES services up slightly. That's related to certain contracts that we have with them and the cost of educating students in BOCES programs. And debt service is simply part of what we are out for our bus purchases and our bonds for our capital projects and previous capital projects. The ERS and TRS are expected about at this amount here. ERS, as we remember from our February meeting, is a higher contribution rate for the employer than that of TRS. So that's why we're seeing a slightly different increase in those percentages there. Social Security, this is simply tied to the wages that we're paying to employees. Workers' comp, we're confident that we can leave that flat. Life insurance, we have increased that slightly, but only by 5%, $700. Unemployment, we're going to leave flat again as well. And again, if we do need to use any unemployment beyond what we are planning on using the reserves, this would be where this would come from. Health insurance, we talked about we had about a 4% increase in health insurance going into the next year in premium rates. So this is our 2% is a budgetary item. We have fluctuations in staff who have individual versus family coverages. So 2% is what we're projecting at health insurance, and we're leaving dental and other benefits flat. So a total 2.1% increase in expenditures. Now, as a whole, we like to break these down and take a look at what does that mean across the entire district. So again, about 70% of our expenditures are our people. So salary and benefits make up about 56.5 million of our budget. But 16% are BOCES services. That is student tuition, that is IT infrastructure, that is business office services. It's food service. There's a lot that goes into that BOCES figure. Debt service, again, bonds that are associated with our bus purchases and our capital projects. Contractual could be anything from keeping the lights on, insurance policies, legal matters, materials and supplies. Obviously, that is keeping the buildings running and getting supplies into classrooms. Equipment could be anything we use to keep the buildings going, keep the parking lots plowed, and interfund transfers is for our annual small capital project. Last year, one of those is for the building controls at the high school. We do an annual small capital project not to exceed $100,000. That is predominantly a function of using that money to attain some work. So we get that work done next year, and then we get the full building aid back on it the following year. New York State allows every school district to do one small project like that a year. So we've been using that as a budgetary item to receive state aid back on it in the following year. So this is a breakdown of the total budget. That is all that I have for tonight. And I'll open it up if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, John.
Hey, Matt, thanks for the presentation. Everybody on the call has probably heard the federal news, right, about the big stimulus package, and there's a large chunk of money coming to states. How do you think that will affect us? Assuming this bill gets passed and the money starts to flow in terms of money from the feds going through Albany and getting to school districts, or maybe there's not an impact. And when do you think we'll understand all that?
Yeah, well, so back in February, when we talked about how we were budgeting for state aid, there's a large figure that's going to flow through, right? That we're anticipating that is going through New York and then will come to the school districts. So there's some concern that once that comes through, it will be taken as a deduct off of foundation aid. So right now, New York is keeping our foundation aid flat. So if there's a deduct off of that foundation aid based on what the federal stimulus funds are, the bigger concern is not necessarily this year. It's next year or the year after when those federal funds don't flow anymore. Because then how is the state going to make up that gap they created by making it a deduct? So that's where we're concerned with trying to have a long range plan to get us to that point where there is, this funding cliff when the federal funds fall off. We're trying to make sure that we're mindful of how we set ourselves up over the next 2-3 years.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Matt, can this presentation be posted on our site?
Absolutely. All the presentations will be posted on the site. It'll be out there tomorrow.
Can I ask if Mario's statement could also be posted as part of the meeting documents for tonight?
Sure. I will. Yeah, absolutely. I'll take care of that.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions? John?
Jeff, I don't have any questions on Matt's presentation, but I didn't know if you were going to address the reopening plan at all, or if I should ask some questions, or if you had any.
That's
Statement
next on the agenda.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. John?
I guess, Matt, this question is about, we have capital programs going on and, with COVID and the budget you just presented, I know that addresses expenditures to run the district and capital is something separate. I guess, are you seeing any impact from either state funding or COVID that would affect our capital programs at this point?
I don't see anything that is going to affect that at this point. The only real impact that we have had that we've worked through, and Cliff can probably speak to this a little better than I, is that we've seen some long lead times and equipment being delivered and materials, and it's kind of drawn the timeline of the project out a bit. But as far as receiving building aid on the project, we have not seen any impacts to that as of this point.
Okay, thank you.
Nope. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? No. All right. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for the presentation. So we will
Thank you.
continue to have updates. Okay, next on the agenda, the instructional update. We'll talk about a recent survey and our plans to try and move to K-5 to 4 days a week. So we have a presentation. Mr. Casson, can you put that presentation up there? Okay.
You can see that? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we can see that. So there's been a lot of work taking place on trying to move our K-5 elementary to 4 days a week of in-person instruction. A survey was sent out, and the results of that survey coming back, we're asking the question of parents as to how many would be bringing their kids or sending their kids for the in-person instruction, and how many would stay with the remote instruction. Just a quick number here. We'll be in some of the following screens. We'll go over by grade level the remote students and our plan for providing instruction there. So right now, we still got a lot of meetings to take place yet. Our subcommittees will be meeting tomorrow, and our steering committee will be meeting to work through the details of how we get kids in for 4 days a week and provide them instruction, without forgetting the remote students themselves. Now, the K-5 sections will either be remote or in person. Teachers will not be required or asked to provide both instructions in person and remote on a daily basis. So this is reorganizing our staff, the staff that's going to be in the classroom day to day with these students, and then we will designate the remote teachers by grade level. Unfortunately, making these adjustments means that some students will have to change teachers. There's just there's just so many teachers that we have to assign to the various classes, whether in person or remote. We have had to ask our AIS teachers to teach classes now in the different grade levels. The rationale for this, again, was our purpose was to provide the best possible education for the students as possible, with as much consistency as possible. Cliff, you want to advance that? There you go. And we've heard very clearly from our teachers and from parents that to try and receive instruction while you're in person and have remote students at the same time, that's very difficult. And it has not been working for all cases. So again, that goes back to, we're going to have teachers for in the classroom, in person, and we will designate teachers for the remote sections. Next, our district level, the results of the survey for kindergarten, we had a total of 38 students across the district. So that's African Road, Clayton Avenue, Glenwood, Tioga Hills, and Vestal Hills. Kindergarten, we have a total of 38 students. And they will be segmented out so that we have two sections, two classes of 19 students each, and a teacher designated for each one of those sections. First grade.
So wait a second. This graphic right here is showing us that district-wide, as a basis from this survey, 38 total kids in an entire grade level are choosing remote, and all the others are choosing in person. Is that right?
That is correct.
That sounds like a very drastic change from where our levels have been.
Yes. If you recall, our remote numbers for elementary K-5 have been right around 30%. And this is a drastic change from that.
Jeff,
I remember when we went, we used to be in the mid 30s, close to 40 in some buildings, I believe. And when we went from 1 day to 2, the remote number crept down below 30 in most of our buildings. And this seems like another big jump of people saying, yes, I'm done with remote, let's do in person. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, the move before, we saw remote numbers increase. But now with this move to go 4 days a week at least, now we're seeing a swing back the other way, where we've got far fewer remote students.
Jeff, how many total kindergartners are there, or how many are in person? I'm just trying to figure out the percentage we're at now.
Of total kindergarten? I think we're just under 300.
Wow.
You have the enrollment numbers? All right, we have the attendance right here. Cliff, do you have the enrollment numbers?
Yeah. Let's see. We do have it in our board packet here.
So we're ballpark 10% now remote in kindergarten. I don't need the exact number.
Yeah, I
just
think we're approximately like 260, 265 in that range.
Yeah.
okay. Are you seeing? So
This
that's
is
about
even
14.
This is even
About
bigger
14,
jump than what
15%.
some of our neighbors saw.
I know Mark and I probably cut you off early, but are we seeing similar percentages across the other grade levels?
Yeah. Yeah, we're seeing similar trends here. For first grade, we've got 30 students, which will be split up to two sections, 14 to 16 students. Second grade, we're looking at 28 students. And again, those will be split between two sections. Third grade, we're at 34 students. And we will have 3 teachers working with those students. Fourth grade, we're at 31 students. And fifth grade, 26. So the numbers are fairly consistent, K through 5.
So these kids will now be in a remote class with kids from other elementary.
So kindergarten will be kindergarten classes, but they may comprise, like Vestal Hills, African Road may have kindergarten kids in that section.
Okay.
Okay.
Makes sense.
We had to go to a district level in order to be able to break this out.
This is exciting. How did you guys expect these numbers to come in the way they did?
We actually expected that it would swing back the other way, but not to this extent. No.
Did that impact your planning significantly?
Yeah, there's been hours and hours, and honestly, we're still working on it. We're still working out the details, to make this happen. And if I didn't say so earlier, I just want to go back and say, we're targeting March 29th as our date to move K-5 to 4 days a week.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. Is that like a trimester point or something, or is that like why
When you
that
can.
date?
That for a number of reasons, we've got a number of things that are taking place. We have to get our teachers, aligned for this change. Our AIS, we're asking a lot of them to make a change from their duties to a classroom now. So we've got some work to do to get them, help get them prepared, ready. We are waiting for our desktop barriers, the polycarbon, barriers to be delivered. We're hopeful. We expect that they'll be in by the 29th. And that's why I say it's a target date, if possible. If these things come together, we will expect to be doing this as of March 29th, which is a Monday. Now, that's the elementary.
Jeff, can I ask one more question on
Yeah.
this plan?
Yeah, go ahead.
When I'm thrilled that we're making this progress, but I'm going to pick on Wednesdays again. Now that the kids are going to be in person, what's the rationale for having Wednesdays be remote for the 4-day kids in person?
Yeah, our plan is to begin this change with the Wednesday still as a full remote day for students. We still have a lot of planning. We have a lot of work that needs to be done, and Wednesdays are going to be those days. We got a lot of meetings that are taking place that now have to be changed. Some of our special education meetings are held on Wednesday. We have to deal with those. Working with our teachers, any changes that need to be done, any of the professional development that needs to be done now because of these changes, Wednesdays will be used. Once we bring everything together, can we look at 5 days a week? We could.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Jeff, I'm gonna go ahead and applaud the folks who are going to be doing stuff that they've never done before, and thank them for stepping up and being classroom teachers. That's gonna be fun times. But I am curious, a little bit curious. I mean, if we're able to pull this off, that's fantastic. But I'm a little bit concerned about our ability to keep remote and in-person kids nicely separated. Obviously, that's the best for instruction. Nobody has been able to pull it off yet, and I guess we're gonna do it. I'm a little bit curious about what happens when an in-person kid all of a sudden goes on quarantine or has a symptom. Do they just go home and switch to one of those other remote sections, or is that at that point, does that classroom teacher have to go back to doing both modes again?
Yeah.
Or would that student have sick days? I could see that also.
Right. This is gonna force us to go back to pre-COVID and how we handle things. In-person classes will no longer be broadcasted by Zoom. We just can't do that. So any student that misses in-person classes, due to quarantine or whatever it is, they could be assigned asynchronous work.
Door was wide open when we got
and handle any assignments and things just like we did before the COVID became an issue. We've asked the parents in the survey. We made it known that this is a decision that we have to stick with for the rest of the school year, because if the students are hopping around from remote to in-person, back to remote, and this, that, obviously, we can't move our teaching assignments, spur of the moment, and keep the instruction going. So the expectation is that, once the decision is made, if you want to be remote, that it will be remote for the rest of the school year. Again, you're probably getting tired of hearing this, but there's no perfect answer for an imperfect situation,
Sure.
which is exactly what this pandemic is. The answers don't suit everybody or 100% of the population, but you got to make some assumptions. You got to draw some lines on some of this. So, and going back, Christine, to your question about the Wednesdays, one of the problems that we really have with the Wednesdays is that some of these meetings that are required, that we request from our teachers and from our administrators, or whether they're required by law, they take place on Wednesday. In the past, we would have substitute teachers that would come in and spell our teachers so those meetings could take place.
Right.
Well, because of this pandemic, we just don't have the substitute base that we've had in the past. So we're very limited there. So we're dealing with that. And again, we've got to make plans and adjustments if we want to do anything different. Yeah, and I just want to thank all our faculty, our administration, and our staff for the hard work and actually the very creative thinking that they've done to make a safe and educationally sound transition possible. I can't begin to tell you the number of people, everybody is involved in this. Everybody, and you know, it's taken hours and hours and hours of work, and we're still trying to hammer out the details. So, you know, for the high school and the middle school, I don't want to forget those, but you know, I just want to say that currently we're identifying grades 6 through 12 students that are at risk, and trying to provide plans that will provide additional help and services for them to help recovery.
Jeff, what kind of numbers are you seeing of students at risk as compared to previous years?
Definitely an increase. Pandemic has definitely taken its toll. Our high school and middle school are running reports identifying students, so we'll have that information that we can supply to the board. Cliff, did you have any numbers that have come through?
Yes, we have at the high school approximately 350 students that were failing one or more class, at least one class. And of those, 69 students are failing 2 classes. At the middle school, we had similar, it was over 300 students failing 1 class. And I don't have the number for failing 2 classes.
What was that number at the middle school? I'm sorry.
It was just over 300.
What would we see in a typical year? Ballpark.
It definitely wouldn't be that high. I mean, this is at the high school level, you know, you would see maybe 100 students or so total, and middle school, very similar. It's like 3 times as many.
So the graphics you showed us for the survey results and the plan, that's going to be on the website?
Yes. Yep, the presentation, the numbers, all that will be, all of these are included in the file on the website. Okay.
So Jeff, it sounds like you're hinting at, for the secondary, there's not really a discussion happening towards moving them towards 4 days. There's more of a discussion.
No, I'm trying to get to that. For the middle school and in the high school, we have ongoing discussions in both buildings with how can we move both of those buildings to 4 days a week. And they have their own challenges. You know, for the number of kids, you know, when we talk about the elementary building, you're talking anywhere from, you know, 260 students to 300 in a building. And how do you do your screening and your contact tracing for those? When you get to the middle school and the high school, you're talking 1,000 students. And that becomes much more of a problem. So morning screenings, contact tracing, even though we're trying to open this up and bring them back 4 days a week, that's going to make a lot more work for the staff to try to track that, because when the county calls and identifies an individual as testing positive, we're going to have to go back. Who was it within the vicinity of that individual for, you know, whatever amount of time throughout the day, and be subject to quarantine. Transportation is still going to be a big issue. I will say that the state is looking at the 6 feet of social distancing and maybe making allowances or a change to 3 feet. You know, we're waiting on clarification on that. That would help us out, obviously, in getting to these 4 days a week. But also for transportation, we would expect that there's be some changes there so we can get more students on a bus. Big problem for us, big challenge is lunches. how do we serve 1,000 students now in a building that typically we had kids shoulder to shoulder at a lunch table eating, and now we have space issues that we have to account for. Now, I will tell you that the staff is looking at additional space in the building that might be utilized for lunches. And then, if we identify those additional spaces, how do you logistically pull that off? The supervision of the tracking back and forth of students to those areas. And cleaning still is going to be a big issue. If whether it's 2 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, we still have our safety measures that we are set by the hand sanitizing, the mask wearing, all those types of things. But the cleaning, you've got more kids in the building now, and that's going to change your cleaning patterns and how it's going to be done. So all that's got to be worked through, and that's what our subcommittees are working on. Having said all that, instruction is always, how's that impacted? How's that going to change? Those things have to be ironed out. We have the staff working on that. So both buildings, the middle school and the high school, are working on these plans, and they are putting together some ideas for a survey, just like we did for the elementary. The middle school and high school will be sending out a survey to parents to get feedback, pertinent feedback on some of the issues that they need to finalize plans for. And I would hope by the end of this week or next week, that survey could go out.
Jeff, I've heard from a number of people from different districts, and I'm just curious how often, I'm sure you connect with other districts. I don't know how much you're able to do that, though. For example, Oxford, I think I've heard, I don't know this is for a fact, but I've heard that they had not been adhering to the 6 feet. They were doing the masks and not 6 feet. Susquehanna Valley has more than 22 kids on buses. So I'm just curious if there's different interpretations of the regulations taking place in different schools, and what you're seeing there, and how that all plays together.
Yeah, Christina, that's one of the things that's come back to us time and time again. We have followed very closely the recommendations of the Department of Health, the Broome County Department of Health, which is the 6 feet social distancing and the face covering, the face mask itself. In the classroom, it's the desks are 6 feet social distance measurements. There's variations out there. Different school districts have used different approaches to that. Their willingness to apply the distance, however that they deem fit. So ours has been conservative. Broome County Health Department is conservative. There's no question on that. So we have had that conservative approach.
Are we required to follow? And I apologize, I missed the last meeting. I had personal reasons I couldn't attend. But it sounded, I reviewed it online, and it sounded like we were shifting to going from the Broome County guidelines to the New York State guidelines.
Correct.
And what were we required to follow the Broome County, or we were just interpreting it in the best way that we knew how, and maybe other districts?
Yeah, it was recommended, to follow the local health department, which is again Broome County. So that was our approach to it. Some of the districts, however, chose to go with the state health department, which was a little bit more liberal in their recommendations. So I see most of the school districts are really kind of generating towards the state level health department recommendations now.
Are there
Which-
any repercussions one way or another?
Well, you know, the repercussions, it would all depend on the situation. You know, if you're talking a liability situation, whatever, you know, school districts still have to prove that they're doing their due diligence. You know, the cleaning, the wearing, enforcement of the wearing of the mask, the hand sanitizing, and things like that. You know, we have to prove that we have an effective system. Should somebody transmit, you know, the virus, and you know, there's an effort to make that come back on the school district, we have to show from our records and from our practices that we've done everything that we can. Thereby, you know, the conservative approach, you know, we did well with that. And I think our safety measures have proven quite effective, where a lot of the districts around us that may not have been as conservative also had to close schools down more than what we did. But right now, you know, we still, according to the county, we have not had the transmission within the school, which is good news for us. Also, as our staff is vaccinated, you know, we are taking a look at maybe moving more towards the state recommendations.
Jeff, I got to say that I've heard, I have not heard of in-school transmission being much of an issue anywhere. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But I guess a little part of me bristles at the idea that we're more careful than everybody, and therefore they've had to have shutdowns, which would kind of imply that other places are having in-school transmissions. And I have not seen anything to show that that's the case. And so I just wanted to make a point of that. And in fact, I mean, those numbers that you began with, the 183 and that's a big number, and it's obviously not, as you say, not happening in our buildings. And I'm curious, it'll be an interesting thing to see with more kids in our building. Do our numbers go down because they're spending more time in a safe environment? It's an interesting question.
Yeah. You know, the one line of thought is we may actually see more quarantines, because as we bring more kids in, you know, there's more bodies in that space. And as the county's, you know, asking for our contact tracing, you know, more kids could be impacted. So we may see those numbers climb.
Can
We'll
I ask
see.
a couple questions on the process? I'm just curious how it's working within the buildings. Are we using pen and paper to track kids' movement? Are we using electronics? Are they logging in? How is that happening?
Cliff, you wanna answer that one?
Yeah, so we have a student management system school tool, so we know which students are in which class. So all of our schedules are based on that. And then the teachers are taking their attendance. So when students come in that class, they take them on school tool. So we have the attendance saved electronically. But also we've asked every teacher to keep a seating chart. So we ensure that students sit in the same seat. And then if there's a contact tracing, we pull that seating chart, and then we can, wherever the positive case is, we go 6 feet and 12 feet, and we help the county do that contact tracing. So
the
that's in every
reporting,
classroom.
it sounds fairly streamlined. It sounds like you guys have a system down.
Yeah.
Are they still using the paper
screener.
Screen when they enter the building?
We are. At this point, we still are using that.
Is that anything we've looked to move electronic just to streamline that more?
We have, and what we found, the opportunities to go electronic, they didn't meet Ed Law 2D. They weren't Ed Law 2D compliant.
Okay.
And with HIPAA laws, we just did not want to have any violations. So we chose to keep the paper. There are some options where we could look at as a possibility, in our health and safety committee, which is convening tomorrow, would discuss that. We could go to a point where maybe we have one document that parents sign off and say, I'm not going to send my child unless, to school if they can't pass a screener. But then again, we wanted to make sure that every day a child was coming to school, the parents consciously went through and checked off if they had any of those indicators on that screener, not to send them because we didn't want to have anyone ill coming into the buildings. So that's been some discussion, but right now we're still focused on keeping that paper screener.
But sounds like going in the reverse, where parents are committing to sending only healthy kids to school. Now that everybody's in the groove, might be
it may be an option. Like I said, we're still, part of our health and safety is running that through Broome County Department of Health and Enwell Family Physicians, who is a school, right, physicians. So we include them in that decision-making process. And like I said, that's tomorrow is our first meeting to talk about that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else we could do to help our staff? One thing, like you hear, like the biggest risk of this is grown up to grown up, and they're the ones who are probably most at risk in our buildings. I know I've asked about N95 masks, and they're like trying to find a purple unicorn. They're hard to get your hands on, and I know we have probably bazillions of surgical masks available for people so that they can double mask if they want. I'm just wondering, is there anything else we can do?
I've heard that kids in Long Island are learning in a bubble. They go in and they sit in some sort of bubble. I don't know what it is. I haven't Googled it yet, but
Individual bubbles?
yeah.
They've actually got these little like tent things for the bands. I've seen that before. There's a band where they have like an individual tent where the student is actually playing in the inside their enclosure, and the kids with the tubas really kind of struggled.
Mark, is there anything else we can do for our staff? We look for things, but that's a question we'll throw out to our health and safety committee tomorrow, and let the various stakeholders some input, see if there's something we can come up with. We don't have any problem trying to do something better or something more.
Can I ask a quick question on attendance? I know our grades are scary. Are kids attending their Zooms? Are we finding that, or are we finding they're not?
Cliff, you've been talking to the principals?
Yeah, I think it's happening more that we have more students attending than we have in the past. But it does vary. And when teachers recognize a student hasn't been attending, they are emailing parents and asking those questions. And if they're not getting responses, they do go to administration, and administration is making contact with parents. So not every student is attending, right? We can definitely say that, but they are making a concerted effort to make sure to reach out to parents and find out the reason why a student's not on a Zoom lesson.
One of the things I'd like to point out is that Wednesday is very important to the kids and the teachers and the parents, because Wednesday is the day that they use to contact parents if students are missing assignments or not turning them in. And it is an important day for the teachers to be able to have that ability to connect with the parents at least once a week.
I do agree with that, Sylvia, and I've tried to be patient with the Wednesdays, but I think for the majority of students, it's a day off, essentially, and that's really hard to keep watching. So that's why I keep pressing it. I do understand that this is a unique scenario, and that is an important day, but education is lacking on Wednesdays, and it's not any teacher's fault. It's just if they're not in front of the kids are not super encouraged to learn, and extra homework is not the answer. So I know there's no good answer, but that's why I keep pressing it.
Yeah, and that's fine, Christina. I just want to point out too that although we're moving to more in-person days, at any time moving forward, we may be obligated to transition to full remote learning due to weather, quarantines, or staff shortages. And again, I'm going back. Quarantines. Yeah, we can. I think we can understand by now what the quarantines can do to us. We've had situations here in the district that we had to close the school for a day because we just didn't have a school nurse. It's a small population of nurses that we have here in the district, and so when a couple of them go down, that really stresses the system here. Staff shortages. We are short bus drivers. School districts across the state, across the country, this is one of the big problems. There's just not enough substitute or bus drivers to call on. And so, as we have retirements, we have turnover, that impacts the number of drivers that we have, and which is going to directly impact the number of bus runs that we can offer here in the district. We double up, we change times of transportation just to try and cover. So just be aware, this is for the board and for the public, that these changes mean changes for the full remote schedule that we might encounter. So I just want everybody to keep that in mind.
Will kids still be using the Google Classroom forum as their primary kind of starting block in case of those scenarios? Is that something, or are we shifting away from that now that we're aiming to have more kids, have kids that are fully in person, not coordinating with the remote?
Yeah. Cliff, is that still discussion?
Yeah, we've had discussions with that. So, teachers have been extensively trained, and it might not be the full functionality, might not need that when you have in person. So like I said, we were talking about that just the other day with our elementary principals, and that's something we need to have further discussions with the staff to see if it's needed or not. We can see where there'll be some value with it, where students that, assignments and whatnot can be posted on Google Classroom, and students for doing their homework, they would have that opportunity to use Google Classroom in that capacity. But it's definitely not going to be the same as if when we had hybrid teachers, right? So we had students at home and students in the classroom. Now, definitely with our remote teachers, that would be that, and Seesaw for our primary students, and then 3 through 5 is Google Classroom. So I definitely would be using that.
That's one of the most positive things I've seen come out of this, is the kids and the teachers, the whole district's ability to shift and learn a skill that in this world everybody has to know. So I hope that, yes, the focus is on in person, but I hope that we maintain our level of technology as we
I hear you.
move forward.
Yeah, and that's been a lot of the discussion, is to keep up that part of it, the remote. Okay, any other questions? I mean, that's a lot of material. We will be updating the board, as we fine tune the plans. We'll be sending that information out to the board members.
I do have one more question, not totally related to, a little semi-related. Regents, I've heard talk that some regents have been canceled, but not all of them. And I was curious if, I don't know for a fact that that's true, and if some are and some aren't, what the state's rationale is on that.
Yeah, the state is still struggling with this. They're still in conversations with the Fed. Right now, what we're being told is that there will be at least 4 regions offered this year.
Do you know which subjects those are?
I think they're actually more saying at most for.
Yeah.
Currently, they're saying ELA, Algebra 1, Earth Science, and Living Environment.
Yeah.
So
Are on or off?
on.
On if they have to.
Yeah, I think Mark's correct. Again, there's still some negotiation going on between the state and the Fed. So in the state's trying to drop, new procedures on their end of it too. So
I would anticipate at minimum the Board of Regents that's going to meet next week.
yeah,
Is probably going to do everything they can to divorce test results from people's, all the negative stuff that everybody hates about testing. Hopefully they're going to decide, all right, if we have to, we'll do some of these regions, but we're going to divorce it from all the negative impacts.
yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
With these kind of metrics, with 3 times as many kids failing, I can't wrap my head around.
Well, and that's
them
the
be
very
responsible.
argument, Christina. Is the why are we looking at testing and assessments when we're in the middle of the pandemic, unable to provide instruction, as typically expected. So that's the very argument.
I think the traditional thing of 1 time slot for a test for the entire state, that's going out the window for sure. I can't imagine that happening.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, stay tuned. We've got more information coming. Mr. Casson, you want to speak to the fall sports? I know Carlin addressed it a little bit, but you want to give the board what information you have?
Definitely, yeah. So we have our winter sports season that has concluded. The last basketball game was this previous Saturday. And so with that, fall sports that commenced on March 1st, and that'll extend until April 24th. And when we bring spring sports back, there's actually a week overlap. So spring sports will begin on April 19th, and that'll extend to sometime in June. But the New York State Public High School Athletic Association has said that the last games will end before any Regents exams in June. So that's what we have for our sports. But just to know, our fall sports, we do have 2 teams, a girls swim and volleyball, that compete inside. And why this is important is because inside, the Southern Tier Athletic Conference has agreed, all the schools have agreed that they allow only 2 spectators per athlete, and it's only for those athletes that are home for inside. And this is in response to COVID-19, just trying to make sure we keep everyone healthy. But for outside sports, we would have available for 2 spectators per athlete for home and away teams. With that, though, there is a recommendation that we take the temperature of any spectator that enters the facility. So if it's at the stadium, they would enter, we'd take their temperature. And we also would have to have their name and some contact information written down, so we know exactly who enters the stadium, which spectators enter the stadium. And with that, we have our athletic director is going to tape off sections on all of our bleachers so that people sit 15 feet apart, 12 to 15 feet apart. And our health department has indicated if that takes place, people sit 12 to 15 feet apart, and there's no congregating with athletes before or after the game, then if there's a positive case that enters the stadium, that will require no contact tracing, because they're confident that people had further enough distance and it being outside. And with that regard, speaking of athletes, each school is going to perform the screener test and the temperature check prior to any contest. So if another school is coming to Vestal, that school district will guarantee that they've conducted that test before the students arrive, not a test, the screener and the temperature check before they arrive at the home school. So all that's been worked out with our athletic directors, our STAC in Section 4, through the guidelines of New York State Public High School Athletic Association. Any questions about that?
Okay. Any questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Casson. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Sherwood. Has an update for us on elections.
Yes, we have some good news from Albany for a change, and it relates to the issue of school board elections. It's the rule in school board elections now that the number of petitions that have to be submitted by a candidate is based on the number of folks that voted in the last school board election. In other words, it's determined by 2% of the number who voted in the last school board election, or 25 persons, whichever is greater. So the issue comes up because of the fact that last year there were 4,500 people who voted in our school district election because of the absentee ballots that were sent out to everyone. So if we apply the 2% figure to 4,500 voters, we get 90 signatures that would have to be collected. And that would be an onerous task in the COVID environment when people don't want to open up their doors necessarily to people who are petitioning for this kind of purpose. So the legislature, based in large part by activities of our School Boards Association, has just passed a law that says for this year only, we can go back and base our 2% based on the amount of people that voted back in the 2019 election. And in our 2019 election, it was only 1,159 folks voting. So that 2% of that is 23 voters. And then we have to round that up to the 25 voter minimum. So the upshot is that this year's candidates will only have to have 25 signatures, and that's going to make Kay's life a lot easier, not having to deal with this kind of issue. So, so thanks to the School Boards Association, to the legislature, and to the governor who just signed this past week. So good news from Albany.
So Mike, now, does that require them to be in-person signatures also, though?
Yeah, that part has not changed.
Okay.
All right. District clerk just said that she would have the updated forms on our website as of tomorrow. So, okay. All right, and we'll mail those that have been requested already. So, thank you, Mr. Sherwood, and that completes superintendent's report.
All right. Can I have now on to new business? Can I have a motion to accept the schedules F, E, F, and P? Sylvia and Mark, questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? The schedules are approved. Resolution 1, 2021-22 co-op bid award for chicken. Can I have a motion, please? Mark and John, questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? The motion is approved. Resolution 2, 2021-22 co-op bid award for processed foods. Can I have a motion for that, please? Linda and Sylvia, questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? The motion is approved. Resolution 3, transportation contract with parent. Can I have a motion? Lynn and Linda, questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? The motion is approved. Resolution 4, declaration of obsolete equipment. Can I have a motion, please? Sylvia and Dino, questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion is approved. Resolution 5, declaration of obsolete equipment, obsolete textbooks. Can I have a motion, please? Dino and Tony, questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion is approved. Resolution 6, student teaching internship. Can I have a motion? Dino and Linda, questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion is approved.
Okay, could I just say something?
Yes, you may.
Just a correction going back, high school numbers. I think we had said that there was over 300 students failing one or more classes. We just got information, it's 234 students that are failing one or more classes. So the number was not as high as what we had initially reported. So and we'll make sure we get that in the district clerk's notes. So thank you.
All right, and so we are on a second reading for policies on parents' bill. I thought we did this one already.
This is the second reading and approval.
Okay, I thought we'd already done that last. Okay, but this is the second reading on the policies 7243, Parents' Bill of Rights for Data Privacy and Security, updated, and policy 5633, Gender Neutral Bathrooms, new. Can I have a motion to approve the policy changes? John and Mark, questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, the policy changes are approved. And now we move on to the voice of the public. Okay, the voice of the public is changed. We are able to sit there and incorporate a Zoom link for the Board of Education meeting on March 9th, 2021. And the link for this is on the website. And so for anyone who would like to participate in this, we invite you to go to the Vestal District website, and there's a link for participation. Any topic can be addressed in the board to the board during this time. This is not intended to be a dialogue or discussion. You will be acknowledged in the order you are signed in. When addressing the board, you will have a maximum of 3 minutes. Please provide your name and address for the record. Please be concise and respectful in your comments. The board does reserve the right to correct any misinformation. The board also has the right to limit comments on a particular subject. By law, the board will not permit public comments or statements or comments relating to any specific student, employee, or legal matters. Members of the public who wish to address the board on these issues should contact the district clerk. Now, prior to, since we weren't able to introduce this as quickly as we could, we still received written comments from people who wanted to address the voice of the public. And so we'll be reading those first, and then we'll be moving on to the live ones.
Okay, the first one is a family practice physician. I want to share with you the great news that in addition to COVID-19 vaccines, there are well-established treatment for COVID-19 disease. It is baffling why this is not more widely reported, and it is for this reason a right to inform you. I would also encourage all of you to contact your personal family physician or internist for more details. I have provided the link to an article outlining the now widely practiced treatment algorithm, AAPS Guide to Home-Based COVID Treatment, PDF. This treatment is available nationwide and is actively used by our local medical facilities. It is safe and very effective. This has contributed to the dramatic decline in hospitalization and deaths. It must also be noted that with the WHO modified their testing parameters on January 20th, 2021, which also contributed to the marked decline in numbers. Thus, we have a vaccine for COVID-19 prevention and a treatment for COVID-19 should the vaccine fail. Even assuming that, heretofore, your restrictions upon in-person attendance had a rational basis. Such is no longer the case. If in fact you are being sincere when you obsessively repeat the mantra that the student's health and safety is your primary concern, you would realize that this goal cannot be attained by continuing the 2-day in-person limit, inasmuch as the deleterious effects of the same are both extreme and quite well known. While we have a vaccine for prevention, and treatment for the afflicted. This is to say nothing of the undisputed fact that 19U youth with no comorbidities are all but immune to COVID. Thus, you have a demographic that is uniquely resistant to the disease. You have a vaccine to prevent it, and you have treatments to cure it, while you know to a moral certainty that the current hybrid model is causing continued severe and irreparable harm. What then is that is preventing our schools from returning to normalcy and our kids from returning to in-person classes for 5 full days per week. You know, and everyone who is paying attention knows that there is no legitimate reason. Rather, manifestly and shamefully, you have decided to to obey the demands of teachers union, demands of teachers union in pursuit of a twisted political agenda, which callously disregarding the long, dark, and lamentable catalog of harm inflicted upon our children. Sincerely, Kristen Robillard.
All right, this is from Alicia Crispell. Good morning. I just wanted to voice my opinion that if for any reason the buses are unavailable to transport children to school, we should still be given the option to drive them in. I understand that you are probably trying to keep kids in the same class and cohort and the same page. However, if you are telling us the remote learning is just as good as in-person learning, then it shouldn't make a difference if half the kids stay home and half go to school. My husband and I both work full-time outside the home. It is not an option for us to work from home. I pay $45 per day to send my kids to kids club program from 8 to 2:30. If she is in school 2 days a week, that leaves approximately 14 days where she needs to attend kids club. That's $630 per month that I pay for child care only during the hours that my child is supposed to be in school. That isn't even after school care. I tell you this to put it in perspective for you what families are going through. Please get our children back in school as often as possible, as soon as possible. It is what is best for our kids, their education, their mental well-being, and our community's financial well-being. I thank God every day that I have people in our community had to call in to work today because they expected that their child would be in school and found out last minute that they won't be and they didn't have an option. I'm simply asking you to be mindful of the strain this whole situation is putting on people.
Next letter is from Steve Robello. I am writing to express my disappointment in how the transportation issue was handled and at the consistent undervaluing of in-person instruction shown by the district. I believe you are very aware of the large number of parents, families, and students who are demanding more in-person instruction as we watch all the other districts in our area continually providing more than Vestal. Knowing this, I am interested in hearing the rationale behind canceling 50% of our children's in-person instruction this week rather than offering families the option to choose remote instruction or provide transportation themselves. Now parents are scrambling to find care for their kids, quite likely exposing them to more people they are not in regular contact with. Now students will all return to school later this week after that exposure. What is the rationale behind canceling all in-person instruction because of a lack of transportation? The timing of this announcement was also not acceptable. Families need more time to be able to find alternative care options if in-person instruction is not being offered. I am lucky that my employer is able to be somewhat flexible with allowing me to work from home. But for those in the district who work jobs for hourly wage, this is yet another hardship. It is clear that equity is not a priority for the Vestal Central School District. As the director for the TRIO Students Support Services Program at Binghamton University, I have devoted the last 10 plus years of my professional career to closing the opportunity gaps for low-income and first-generation college students. The pandemic has been a major setback for closing the opportunity gap nationwide. Vestal, however, has exacerbated the gap by limiting the number of in-person instruction offered to students when compared to every other district in the area. There are areas in the district that do not have cell phone service that required for hotspots, and where high-speed internet is not available. DSL is therefore their only option and does not provide the bandwidth necessary for Zoom calls, especially with multiple family members being on at the same time. Students living in those areas have fallen behind. There are families in the district who do not have the flexibility within their jobs to stay at home with their children and give them the support they need throughout the school day. These students are falling behind. There are students whose parents do not have college degrees and whose only exposure to the college application process is the high school guidance office. These students are falling behind. For some students in the district, school is their only escape from an abusive home life. These students are falling behind. Students who are English language learners, students with disabilities, and students who receive services such as speech, physical, and occupational therapies are falling behind. The list goes on and on of students being left behind by Vestal Central School District. Other school districts are finding a way and are months ahead of Vestal. It is the responsibility of the district to level the playing field and minimize the opportunity gap for these students. Please consult the abundance of literature and research on this topic and recognize the fact that not all people in the district share the same privileges when making decisions. The constant lack of effort from the district to provide in-person instruction is absolutely unacceptable. We are so deeply disappointed that we are seriously considering joining many of the families who have moved out of Vestal so that their children can get the education they deserve. Please provide me with the logic behind canceling our students' in-person instruction today and consider providing families with the option of providing their own transportation if this situation arises again in the future. Thank you for your time and response. Sincerely, Steve Rubello.
This is from Valerie Cook. I understand that things happen and we all need to drop back and punt from time to time. However, it truly feels like the district either doesn't care about parents or thinks there's a stay-at-home parent at the child's disposal. I've not complained once this year. I've been one of the support and stick up for the district through all of this year. However, to send the information that you would be fully remote 3/1 less than 12 hours before it happened was uncalled for. I can all but guarantee that you had more notice than that. However, you did not extend that to us. You left parents scrambling because it was not enough to find daycare. We drive our child, and from the amount of comments from other parents that they've seen transportation staff not properly wearing masks, I'm not surprised that this happened. Why could we not drive him today as well? Why did you wait until Sunday night to notify us? We chose to live in this district because your stellar reputation, and lately we are regretting our decision. You can do better, so do better.
Next is from Roel Reinarts. I realize that the COVID-19 pandemic has created unique challenges for school districts throughout New York State, throughout the United States, and throughout the world. But the challenges Vestal Central School District is facing are not unique to what other local schools districts are facing. Yet as a parent of 2 Vestal High School students and employed in education myself, I cannot hide my concern and frustration at the lack of leadership in the Vestal District Superintendent and Assistant Superintendents have demonstrated. In challenging times like this, flexibility, creative and out-of-the-box thinking and acting is required to find creative, feasible, and workable solutions. Yet the position Vestal has taken is thinking about the district first without dialogue with their students, parents, or students, taxpayers, and even their own employees. While other school districts that have far less financial resources have come up with the workable, not perfect solutions to educate their students, work with their parents, and involve their staff to create viable alternatives. For example, Windsor Central School District has transported students on an early and late bus, and all elementary students have attended school 5 days per week in person with less COVID cases per capita than Vestal. Or Owego Central School District has had all middle and high school students attend 2 to 2.5 days weekly with less COVID cases than Vestal. Also, I think Vestal Central School District needs to focus more on the mental health of their students at this time and not on grades. Student-teacher interaction via Zoom is substandard. Students are stressed out maintaining their grades, handing in work with tight deadlines, and performing tests and quizzes online with far less instruction than in-person education provides. How can Vestal expect this from their students? Teachers are unable to evaluate a student while being through Zoom and refer them to guidance counselors or school psychologists. Teachers and students experience Zoom fatigue, with teachers becoming less creative in keeping the students engaged in the material, and students become less interactive, turning off camera and demonstrating less and less reciprocal communication with teachers and peers. Communication via phone, voicemail, and email is chaotic, lacking order and a concise message. Leaving email communication up to the school principals demonstrates, in my opinion, a lack of leadership and is passing the responsibility that the three of you as Vestal Central School District executive team have to others and is a cop-out. I hope that my concern as a Vestal High School parent, taxpayer, and fellow educator will be addressed during March 9th, 2021 board meeting. Feel free to contact me and email address and phone number. Sincerely, Roll Renards.
This is from Nicole Carter. I am highly disappointed in the way the issue with transportation has been handled. Knowing on Friday night what the quarantine situation was, and then not notifying parents of the children until Sunday night before the school on Monday is irresponsible and inexcusable. And I'm sorry, I just will mention that the issue with transportation was not aware to the district until Sunday afternoon. So it wasn't anything that was understood until literally hours before the district informed the public. But I go on. Now they are back to only one day after telling us they had to be virtual because it wouldn't be equitable for other kids. We later received a new email that said that the other kids could be driven to school for the rest of the week. How is that equitable for my children? Not to mention the kids that were driven to school on Monday anyway because they didn't care that they were told not to. I regret not doing this. You couldn't tell them no and send their kids home because you really had no idea who was supposed to be there that day. Vestal Schools continues to be a disappointment with every decision that is being made. Also, if the bus drivers followed proper protocol of wearing masks, not gathering indoors, or coming to work sick with symptoms, then we would not be in this mess. My kids continue to struggle with isolation and their mental health thanks to the terrible decisions being made by the Vestal School District. It's shameful that parents are not allowed into these meetings, and it's obvious at this point the reason for that.
Next letter is from Nathan Toomey. Dear Board of Education, I am writing as a Vestal parent. Our kids desperately need to be back in school. We are approaching the 1-year anniversary of school closures. Our kids are depressed. Our kids are not learning. Our kids have lost almost everything in this crisis. Sports, friends, teachers, clubs. We need you to advocate for us to the school administration. I realize that there is a risk in increasing the density in schools. Our kids' education is worth that risk. We demonstrate the value of something by the risk we are willing to take to get it. The fact that our schools are not willing to take risks to educate our kids is sending a very clear message. Education is not valuable. It isn't worth a risk. Our kids need our teachers and our Board of Education to be willing to take a risk on their behalf. Stand up for them, please. We need you. We don't want to sue the school district. We don't want to make a big fuss. We don't want to stop school taxes. We only want our kids back in school. Please help. Thank you, Nathan Toomey.
This is from Sherry Hamaker. Could you put out a survey to parents asking who would consider getting our kids back in ASAP without the partitions? Many parents I have talked would rather kids back in the best learning environment immediately than to make kids continue to suffer academically, socially, and mentally. When will the survey be put out for the rest of the school? Our seniors deserve some normalcy before they graduate. Also, at what point will you consider having all kids with an IEP back in full time? They have suffered the most from this plan.
This is another one from Sherry Hamaker. Hello, board and administration. If we are looking at statistics, then below are the stats of the children who have died from COVID versus the children who have died from suicide. 208 COVID opposed to 7,000 since COVID started. At what point are you going to look at the whole scope of the situation? Also, when we read the stats for all the schools and those of comparable size, Vestal has come out on top with higher number of COVID than those going back more days. Schools are a safe place for kids to be. Let's get back to school ASAP before the partition come in. Thank you, Sherry Hamaker.
This is from Christina Nush. I am aware that you are working on getting the elementary schools back in school for more days, but why is it 4 days only? School should be 5 days. The education that is being lost this year will never be replaced. The damage done to our kids emotionally and mentally is taking a toll that I don't know how to undo. Wednesday is basically a day off for the district with very little work given and no instruction time for many classes. It has been 1 year of our child's lives being torn apart. It's time to give them back their in-person education. When is the survey going out for the middle and high school students asking about increasing in-person days? It is time they are back in school 5 days a week, and considering how long it has taken to just get talks going regarding elementary students, it is time to get moving on the older children in the districts as well. Hybrid is not working for most students. There should be two options, fully remote or fully in person. Hybrid helps very few students. Please do your job. Please fight for our children.
Next letter is from Matthew Bull. Good evening. I would like to voice my support for opening schools 5 days each week for instruction in school instruction. The science shows that schools can open safely. Please hear the parents and open the schools. Matthew Bull.
This is from Amber Montalbano. Can you provide Vestal parents with a date for when our elementary students will begin attending school 4 times a week? Will this be in time for the beginning of the 3rd trimester next week, or do you intend to wait until students return to school after the April break? What steps are being taken for secondary students to return for more in-person days instruction?
The next is from Janet Scarinzi. I am the grandmother of 2 children who attend elementary school in the Vestal School District. I help care for the children while their parents work full-time and therefore have witnessed the remote learning process. It is time for the children to go back to school full-time. My granddaughter, who is in 1st grade, does all of her required schoolwork under my supervision. And an entire day of schoolwork takes her at most 30 minutes. She has 2 Zoom meetings per day. The morning Zoom consists of greeting and then chair yoga. The afternoon Zoom meeting consists of the teacher reading a story. That is it. This has been the same schedule since September. My daughter is a teacher in the Susquehanna Valley School District, teaching 4th grade. She has been working 5 days a week since September. This has worked very well for this district, which borders Vestal. I know the proposal is for the students to return to school 4 days a week. Why not 5? What is planned for every Wednesday? I was told there will be CSE meetings on Wednesday. Is that necessary? CSE meetings are nothing new, and in the past, we have never had a dedicated weekly day. I read the survey sent to parents about returning to school. I was very disappointed in the negative tone. Instead of focusing on the fun of returning to school, the focus was on the negative things that could happen. Examples being, your children might have a different teacher. There might not be social distancing. You must make a binding commitment for busing, etc. I am pleading for the children to return to school. The students have already missed so much time. It is time. The children in so many other local districts are in school 4 or 5 days a week without issue. It's time for Vestal to join them. Sincerely, Janet Scarinzi.
This is from Adrienne Klein. I write to you as a frustrated and angry mother, educator, and taxpayer here in the Vestal School District. I have watched from the sidelines since my first letter to you back in September with utter astonishment as the Vestal School Board of Education and Administration continue to fail the children within this district. After attempting the disaster that is hybrid learning, my husband and I decided to pull our 1st grade daughter out of Vestal schools in early October. We enrolled her in one of the Broome County Catholic schools. As I know you're well aware, Broome County Catholic Schools has been able to have consecutive in-person school for over 100 days now. My daughter's 1st grade class has 16 children in it. Even though it's difficult to maintain social distance and they do not have plexiglass dividers in between the desks, they do wear masks. The children are able to eat lunch together in the cafeteria, spread out at the tables provided. There has been 0 spread of COVID in my daughter's classroom and very few cases at her school at all. The teachers feel safe and are happy to be there. The children are receiving a full-time in-person education under the most normal circumstances possible during this pandemic. I think it bears repeating, they have had very little to no spread of COVID in the schools. I can't describe how incredibly grateful I am to the staff and administrators of the Catholic schools of Broome County. They have, unlike Vestal, decided to put the education of their students as their utmost priority. Honestly, I do not know how any member of the Board of Education or administration could not put the children's education they serve as their priority. Because of their hard work and dedication, my daughter is thriving and loving school. However, I know that my daughter is one of the lucky ones. Many are not able to pay the high school taxes of the Vestal School District, as well as the full tuition of a private school. For those that aren't able, their children are the ones that are suffering because of your inadequacy and poor decisions. Back in September, Mario Nunes took time out of his day to email me back regarding my concerns over the reopening plan. He implied that school would not be back to normal until there was a vaccine available. Here is his direct quote. Our hope is that a vaccine can be developed so that we can return everyone back to the buildings and return to some form of normal as quickly as we can. Till that happens, we're all in this horrible circumstance together. Here we are in March with not just one vaccine available, but 3, and yet schools are still not open and there are no plans to get middle and high school back to more in-person days. My questions are these. How long is the Board of Education and Administration going to ignore the various scientific studies that have come out showing that schools are considered a low-risk activity in regards to the spread of the COVID? How long will the Board of Education and Administration ignore the increase of depression and suicide rates in the children that they have pledged to serve? Pediatricians are pleading with school districts to reopen. Where is your data proving that your methods are the right choice? Why can every other school district in this county offer more in-person school safely, but not Vestal? Why has Vestal chosen to prioritize the reorganization of school sports over more in-person school days? My husband and I recently made the very difficult decision to move out of state. A very large part of this decision was the unknown future for our daughter's education if we were to stay in the Vestal School District through the next school year. Unfortunately, paying for 2 children in private schools is not an option, and we couldn't risk not knowing what tricks and surprises the Vestal School District will have in store for the next school year. Vestal School District has become the worst district in the county. I do realize that this is a little long, and a few of you may have fallen asleep or have decided to eat your dinner during the reading of this email. For those of you who have listened, I thank you for your time.
Next is from Sarah Shepard. I'm writing this email on behalf of her children. Online learning has affected our family in a negative way. The impact to her children have experienced ranges from excessive frustration, agitation with my husband and myself to complete online assignments in a timely fashion and difficulty in concentrating on the task at hand. One child has recently been evaluated and assessed for a learning disability related to speech and language. This child is now in an IEP program. This child struggles at home. Attending online 3 days a week for an IEP student is near impossible. My other son is in a 504 plan. Any student with either IEP or 504 plan needs class instruction at least 4 to 5 days a week. I'm extremely upset with the amount of time the children are engaged online with their teacher. 2 Zoom meetings a day lasting 10 to 15 minutes each is not sufficient for a struggling first grade. How is Vestal School District planning on doing better for the children in regards to 4 to 5 days a week in class instruction?
This is from Maureen Khan. I'm writing to all of you in regards to a very concerning issue. A lot has been said and talked about the unavailability of enough transportation staff on March 1st and the decision that the district had to take in response. My grave concern is not only the district's decision as to how they tackled the problem, but the reaction of some of the parents as well, which was showcasing a sense of white privilege at its crudest form. Attached are some of the snapshots of what was said in the Vestal parent group. I have blurred the names of the individuals who made these comments to respect their privacy, but it did leave me petrified. Does white skin color give people the permission to leave online threats to an entire school district and get away with it? Had it been a parent of color or someone from a minority group, would they have been allowed this online behavior? We are law-abiding, tax-paying citizens of the United States of America. As first-generation immigrants, we work hard and try to go the extra mile to become contributing good citizens of our country. We love this land. As a parent, I'm very disappointed and apprehensive about the future of my children in this district. I hope children who are of color or belong to any minority group will continue to be treated fairly in this district, though I've started to have serious doubts about it. Please do something about it.
Next is from Susan Christensen. I often hear people in public say parents are looking for the district to provide student daycare. I would submit to you, Mr. Ahern, and the Board of Education, that that is exactly what many students are getting right now, 3 days a week remotely, daycare. What the children of Vestal Central School District need is an education. Most parents are not educators, and that is why we have the public school system. Educating our youth takes a unique, special skill set that is highly valued and is not something that can be picked up by the parents of your district long-term. Parents aren't asking for daycare. We are asking for our teachers to educate our children full-time. Mr. Ahern and the Board of Education, we as parents support the health and safety of all students and staff in the buildings, but your overly conservative approach to bring our children back to school needs to change. One thing this pandemic has taught us all is the need to adapt and be flexible. Vestal Central School District needs to update their plans and their conservative approach as other school districts have and adapt and be flexible. It's time for you to open up the Board of Education meetings and have two-way dialogue with parents, and it's time for you to bring all of our children back to school 5 days a week. When are you going to schedule your first open Zoom meeting with parents? When are all our children going back to school more than 2 days a week? We are simply asking for you to be more transparent. Susan Christensen.
This is from Jackie Scheck. Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to read this letter. I have several questions that I'm hoping you can answer and provide clarification on. The following questions pertain to the Board of Education meetings themselves. 1, why are we still having Board of Education meetings via Zoom? 2, when will we transition to public Board of Education meetings where we can be heard? You are not adhering to the open meetings law. 3, can we have Board of Education meetings in the gymnasium where parents can pre-register to attend? 4, when will you start responding to our questions and concerns? 5, do you have rules and regulations in place for your Board of Education Zoom meetings? Is it okay to eat, sleep, turn cameras off, leave the meeting, not pay attention, and do other tasks while on the Board of Education Zoom meeting? 6, why are votes counted that are not cast during the Zoom Board of Education meetings? The following questions pertain to the open schools. 1, why are we only pushing for schools to open 4 days per week? Why not 5 days per week? 2, since when did schools have training days on Wednesdays? 3, why are we only focused on elementary students going back 4 days a week? What about middle and high school students? 4, what happened to the children with individual education plans? Why are kids who have IEPs still only going to school once or twice per week? Children with IEPs, 504s, and special needs should be grouped together. 5, why are our students forced to learn in person because Vestal School District has a lack of bus drivers and staff? 6, when did it become the school's responsibility to homeschool children? 7, why were plastic partitions just ordered? Why wasn't this done back in August? The 6th rule was a recommendation, not a requirement. I'm sorry, the 6-foot rule was a recommendation, not a requirement. But I'm glad that you are aware of that now. 8, why do we still have paper COVID screening forms? Can this be done electronically? 9, why aren't you working with parents? How can we truly be heard? Please see the following and what other schools have been offering. Binghamton, grades 2 and under, attend 4 full days per week. Catholic schools, open full-time 5 days a week. Shenango Valley, elementary schools open 5 full days a week. Green, elementary schools open 5 full days a week. Harpersville, K2 attend 4 full days a week. Johnson City, kindergarten attends every day. Grades 1 through 5 attend 2 to 3 days and rotate Fridays. There are no off planning days. Main End will open schools 4 days a week. Owego, elementary students attend 5 days a week. UE, students attend 4 days a week. Whitney Point, grade K5 attend 5 full days a week. Windsor, elementary students attend 5 full days a week. Vestal, elementary students attend 2 days a week, with Wednesdays being non-instructional day. Don't forget, we only have roughly 14 more weeks of school left. Remote instructions vary drastically as well. Some students have hour-long meetings while others have 20-minute meetings or none. Lastly, I will leave you with a brief message of how the shutting down and reopening of Vestal Central School District has affected our life. My husband and I both work law enforcement. We worked hard and waited well over 5 years to be in the career position we are in. With that said, we had to uproot our children and move 4 hours away from our family and friends. Next thing you know, COVID-19 is now a pandemic. My husband and I quickly exhausted all our annual and sick leave time so we could watch and teach our children, school-age children. At the time, we were unable to find any daycare that had openings. As the new school year 2020 started, we were able to find gymnastics place, which offered kids camp due to COVID-19. However, at $80 per child, $80 per day, we quickly realized we didn't have it in our budget to keep sending them daily. We also didn't have it in our budget to quit our jobs. We are essential employees. Now our children watch and teach themselves when they are not in school. Our son has an individualized education plan and has ADHD. He reads at a second grade level and in the 5th grade. Imagine not being able to read or sit still and being forced to sit at home in front of a computer with a million distractions. Imagine having to try and complete your assignments with a million distractions, including a little sister who needs help reading. Yes, that's right. Now you have a child reading a second grade level, helping a 1st grader with online assignments when they should be in school with a teacher. Due to the mismanagement of Vestal Central School District, our children now have much anxiety and stress. Our son's IEP has not been modified in a way to effectively provide an educational model that supports his diagnosis and deficiencies. We were told if we weren't happy with the special education services our child is receiving, we could pull our child from the program. We have voiced our concerns to the school principal, special education teacher, special education director, school psychologist, and the superintendent secretary. Our children cry, our children have no friends, our children hate going to school. How did you allow this to happen? You realize that several parents who were financially able to have pulled their children from Vestal School District. Shame on you, Vestal Central School District, for allowing our children to suffer for not putting them first.
Next is from Bob Waltersdorf. I am a Vestal resident and taxpayer who has 2 current grandchildren in the Vestal School District and 2 grandchildren that will be in the near future. My wife and I provide childcare and homeschooling for these grandchildren. I want to express my concern and anger over the Vestal School District not allowing 5 in-person school days per week. There is certainly enough scientific data to allow for 5 in-person days per week to happen. I am witness to the lack of in-person days negatively impacting 2 of my grandchildren emotionally. I see mood swings of anger, confusion, frustration, sadness quite often. My heart breaks for them. I've heard all the excuses and reasons why this can't happen logistically. In my opinion, all of these reasons can and should be overcome. It's time to put the students first and stop the political motivations that have been driving this board and administration. Thank you for your time. Bob Waltersdorf.
This is from Dana Newell. Well, it's time for the voice of the public. Some board members will get off Zoom meeting or do something else to occupy their time while the letters are being read. But why not? The majority of them just sit there during the meetings and not say a word. They're usually working on something else, walking around their house, or just sitting there daydreaming. I thought the reason to get on the board was to make a difference, be the voice for the parents. I guess I was wrong. Why is the board afraid of having Zoom meetings with parents? You have the ability to control the mute buttons. You can even invite the news since you said you're so open to communicating with parents. Other school districts listen to parents, but unfortunately this board doesn't and seems to like to oppress the parents. Why are substitute teachers not being utilized? No teacher, no Zoom for the day, which equals no learning for that day. Wednesdays are a complete joke. There should be classes taught that day. It's basically a day off for students. Our children are suffering due to the lack of education and socialization that comes from attending school 5 days a week. Please start listening to the parents and not to the teachers union.
Next is from David Brosius. I implored the Vestal administration and Vestal School Board to make having our children in school 4 or even 5 days a week your main priority and focus. I have children at all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high school, and they all need to be in school 4 or 5 days a week. Last week's transportation fiasco is a strong indication on how dedicated the majority of parents in our district are to have their kids in school buildings. To see the turnout of parents willing to take their kids to school so they didn't have to be stuck at home an extra day last week was a statement on this current model at our schools, and only our schools in this area, that it is not working and not acceptable. At no point should the decision have ever been made to not allow parents to drop their kids off to school on their actual cohort day. It amazes me that that was even considered an option for 24 hours. I want my kids to be at a district that doesn't even consider that for 24 minutes. We need decision makers at Vestal schools that will stand up and say that this isn't right. What can we do to make sure these kids don't miss out? Not to do what is easiest or part of the plan. This plan was established months ago. Our community's environment has changed for the better during the school year in regards to the pandemic, and our ideas, plans, and ways of doing things need to change with the time. A majority of Vestal parents are done with the same old plan and approach. Think outside the box, put the extra work in, do it for the kids. They need to be in school, and they need decision makers that are looking out for their best educational interests. Sincerely, David Rosius.
It's from David and Wendy Cardy. We are parents of a kindergartner, second grader, and fifth grader in the Vestal School District. We have been a part of Vestal schools for 5 years and have been happy with our children's educational development and the quality of education the Vestal schools provide. This year, we decided to remove all 3 children from the Vestal schools and send them to a private school in order to ensure they will be inside of a building and receive adequate education. Vestal was and is not able to provide adequate education for our children this year with the current setup. Hybrid or remote learning is not adequate and will not be part of our children's learning. Until our children can attend school 5 days a week, we will not be returning. This is unfortunate and creates a financial burden, but our children's education is paramount. We trust the safety and security of our children to the principals, teachers, and employees at Vestal schools. This has never wavered. This trust would continue upon returning to a 5 days in school week. As a Vestal taxpayer, we are entitled to public school education that we are currently not able to receive. Vestal schools are lagging behind larger school districts with reopening plans throughout the state and country, and we are very disappointed in your lack of progress. On behalf of our family and children, please return Vestal to 5 days of in-school learning per week.
Next is from James Fisher. I was shocked to learn that via teacher-led discussion, maybe rumor, last week that there was a discussion to bring the kids back full-time, but installed dividers at dusk. This was supposed to happen after spring break and the installation of said plastic sneeze guards. While excited that our kids could come back 5 or 4 days a week full-time, I was immediately depressed that they would be installed into fish bowls. I was curious as to the potential metrics that were used to study the mental ramifications of having our children in cloth masks while sitting behind plastic barriers. Which studies were used during this decision? Did they reference short-term and long-term harm in regards to cases of OCD, PTSD, self-harm, depression? If the answer is we just follow the guidance, why have we decided to follow such guidance without fully researching what could potentially lead to mental, physical harm to our children? If this is the plan, then will the parents be notified on all measures installed? Can this be an option if a child's pediatrician advises against this optics-based measure? We have witnessed schools within 30 minutes of Vestal have 5 days of in-person instruction since September. These schools going 5 days with a larger number of kids in class without barriers in place, with no outbreaks of transmission. Scientific studies done in sneeze guards in restaurants show they do not prevent or deter transmission of any viral pathogens, are merely for optics. Thank you for your time, James Fisher.
That's it. Okay. And so I think I saw that there were 12 hands raised.
Yeah. Mr. Casson, do you want to start the audio?
Yes, we can do that. So we have, right now we have 13 individuals with their digital hand raised. So what I'll do is I can click a button that says allow to talk, and with the first person when they come in, we'll set the timer for 3 minutes, and I'll remind someone when they have about 10 seconds remaining. Okay, so that's the plan. We'll bring the first person in now. This is a Kid Ventures Clubhouse. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi. Thank
Hello.
you for my time. This is Dina Kalina, and I reside at 2313 Acorn Drive in Vestal. I just wanted to address the communication or lack thereof and lack of transparency from the Board of Education and the administration to the parents in our district. We have watched now for months as you have completely shut the parents out of all decision-making, of all communication with your decision-making. Since the summertime, when one parent alone was placed on the committee meetings for the reopening plans to be made. You have certainly in no way adhered to the letter or the intent of the open meetings law for months now. Whereas there are several districts in our area who have continued to hold open public Board of Education meetings. And we have been relegated to watching meetings on YouTube and not allowed to have any discourse with any of the administration or the Board of Education. We have taken every opportunity to try to communicate. We have written letters. We have made phone calls. If we receive a response, it comes months later. And it's a generic response that says, refer to the facts, the frequently asked questions part on the web page. Case in point, today, the day of the meeting, you changed the procedures of how parents are able to communicate with you. Do you send out a message like you do for every positive COVID case? No, you post an announcement on the website. Who goes to the website on a daily basis? Virtually no one. We were told we came out word of mouth. So if you really wanted to hear from parents, you would have sent out a message to the entire district alerting that the procedure had been changed. That now you were opening up a Zoom meeting for communication with parents, but you didn't do that. It's just one more case of you not wanting to communicate with parents. Aside from the transportation issue, which I do not believe that you found out fully on Sunday evening, regardless of what you say, that communication was abhorrent and again, a disaster. A message was put out at 8 o'clock. Follow-up emails came from high school and middle school principals after that. Another follow-up email came out at 10 o'clock at night. I don't think that anybody would think that that is an appropriate way to communicate with parents in any way, shape, or form that is affecting decisions at 6 o'clock the next morning for everyone.
And second,
I want to know when you will start being accountable to your students, your families, and taxpayers. Board members, we've watched for months as you sit and eat during meetings, sleep during meetings, don't ask a single question, you sit on your hands. You are our elected representatives. You are our voice.
Down.
yeah,
We were only able to begin the live participation of community and family members only like within the last few days. And so you're actually watching us kind of having to go through the growing pains and the technical difficulties. And so we're working on getting the next speaker to come up right now.
all right, we'll get the next one here. Sorry about that technical difficulty. The next person is,
Go ahead.
okay.
I was just going to ask quickly what prompted the change. I was encouraged to see the change, but I don't want to interrupt the next person either.
We just discovered that we could figure out a way to make this work, and we just rapidly tried to put it together as quickly as we could at that point. We didn't really
Thank you.
have time to formalize everything or organize it ideally. And so ideally, what we won't be doing is reading letters in the future. We'll be allowing folks to be able to to participate through Zoom. But since we weren't able to do it as quickly as we wanted to, we decided to read those letters tonight and then move on to to going fully live in the future.
So we have the next person is Kelly Hughes. Kelly, can you hear us? Okay. We set the timer for 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Kelly Hughes and I reside at 716 Keenan Drive and I'm a senior at Vestal High School. The issue I'm speaking on tonight is regarding the
I'm sorry, Kelly, could you speak up?
Yes. Wait. Can I have a moment to fix my audio?
Cliff, can we move on to the next person? Let Kelly come on next.
Can.
Yeah, Kelly, we'll go ahead and get you set up for the next one.
Next person is Kayleen. Kayleen, can you hear us?
Yes.
We'll set the timer for 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Keelan Smith and I reside at 4228 Drexel Drive. I am speaking on behalf of my fellow senior student athletes who have been part of the Vestal softball program for our entire middle and high school
No,
career.
I'm sorry, Colleen, I'm sorry, we can't discuss personnel matters.
Okay.
Mario, could she speak without mentioning any direct personnel if she's very
No,
careful?
not in regard to this
No.
issue, no.
Okay.
Next person is Sherry Hammaker. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, so my name is Sherry Hammaker. I'm at 216 Griffin Hill Road. I would agree with someone else who mentioned if we could get all kids with IEPs, and I'll include 504 plans in immediately. My child has missed services. He requires 2 days of occupational therapy. Doing one of those on Zoom is nearly impossible. They've not made allowances to, have them come into the school. So it's just been extremely difficult. I have an LED major. If I were free to be, if my child was in school, I could be a substitute. I've thought about subbing, but I don't have that opportunity. I'm wondering if there are other parents who, if they were freed up, would help out this year in that way, just so that you would have that as an option. I question, at what point in our lives as parents do we put adults' needs before the children's needs? Think about it as a parent, that we're putting the adults that are in their lives ahead of the children. And I think we have it backwards. I get it. We don't want our immune compromised, mom or grandma to get the virus, but our kids don't know how to handle this. We're adults. We have learned coping skills. Children need to be in the schools, being educated in person with their teachers. When you mention the AIS teachers, does that mean that my son's special ed teacher, which he sees every day, either on Zoom or in school, will he not be getting the services, the half an hour that he gets every day with her? And I was surprised that there was not an email, school-wide email, telling them about the change for this tonight, that parents could be a part of it. It would seem like that would be something, if it's affecting parents directly, that the whole district should have been let know that they can be a part of it. And when you say that we have just figured out how to do the technology, it's hard to understand that we've been doing Zoom for a year. I'm sure you guys have been on Zoom calls with, lots of teachers. So it's confusing to me how we weren't able to figure that out in September to have open parent
10
meetings.
seconds remaining.
So I would just ask that we have open parent meetings from now on, where either this is happening or we're also including the parents too.
Thank you.
Hey, Cliff, did we lose Kelly?
No, I can bring Kelly. I'll bring her in next.
All right, thank you.
Kelly, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Kelly Hughes and I reside at 716 Keenan Drive, and I'm a senior at Vestal High School. And the issue I'm speaking on tonight is regarding the Vestal varsity softball team.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly. I'm sorry, Kelly. We're not going to be able to continue on with that. That's a personnel matter.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
All right, I'm sorry.
Can you hear us okay? This is ELA Claire.
Yes, this is Eric LeClaire.
Okay, if we set the timer for 3 minutes.
Thank you. I reside at 71 Highland Drive, Appalachian, New York. First of all, thank you for this opportunity, and also thank you for what you guys do. I know you're in a tough position, so thank you. Just want to start out by saying why my wife and I chose Vestal. We chose it for the education. We also chose it for the sports. One thing I want to share is I grew up playing sports my entire life. And from that, I've taken away a lot of characteristics, a lot of things that I actually implement in my day-to-day life managing people in the company. So just a couple things I want to share with you that I've learned through that is through good, sound sports programs, the importance of that is it produces structure, okay? Also, there's a lot of discipline that goes with that. And also through coaching and everything, good role model. But I think most importantly, these kids need to have is consistency. And that's, I've been on the Zoom meeting since it started. And that's one screaming thing that I've been hearing time after time is we need consistency, okay? But most importantly, I believe is ability to motivate and grow athletes. So I'll end, I won't take up my 3 minutes, I'll save it for somebody else. I'll end referencing that sports, about the past success that we've had at Vestal that we're very proud of, and hopefully the future success of the sports programs. So I'll correlate it like this. Making a team for varsity sports helps prepare these students to become young adults. It helps to prepare them to reality of the real world that they will face. I link that to, it's very similar to when they graduate from high school and college, if they so choose to go to college, when they have that first interview for their job. You either get the job or you don't get the job. That's the reality of life. Thank you again.
Okay, the next person is Michelle Morante. Michelle, can you hear us? Michelle, hello?
Michelle, I think you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Go ahead.
Okay. Just first of all, I'm Michelle LeClaire. I live at 71 Highland Drive in Appalachian. First of all, I just wanted to say I've been sitting here through the whole meeting too, and I'm hearing a lot of criticism, and I'm not going to share my opinions on 5 days a week or not, but I just want to say, I think you guys are doing the best you can. I know that you didn't choose this COVID thing. It's not fun for you, and I'm sure you're not enjoying driving everybody in the district crazy. You're not doing it intentionally. So, and I just want to apologize for the people who have to voice their opinions by personal criticisms. I think that's a little immature. So I think we can all voice our opinions without attacking you guys. So I just want to apologize for the people who do that. Okay, but what I wanted to talk about is that I didn't grow up in this area or attend a local school here. So I'm able to have a very unbiased view of the school district because I have no history in this area. One of the first things that I learned, however, coming into the Vestal school district is that there's a very strong history of parents affecting athletic teams. And from who gets on the teams to who gets cut or not to how the teams are run. And that's something that's very foreign to me. I don't understand that. I think that parents and the public should be allowed to voice their opinions and that if there is a large volume of people who are voicing the same thing, that by all means the board should listen to them. But it concerns me when there's, it needs to really balance. If there's one complaint about something, that one complaining parent can affect how an entire sport is handled. This has happened several times in the past before my kids even got up into sports. I heard about a lot of things that happened and how the way teams were handled were affected. And now it's happened again recently. So I just wrote a letter recently, and I just wanted to say, I think we need to decide as a district, are we going to be an all-inclusive school, not as competitive, but allowing everybody onto teams? Or are we going to be a more competitive school where we're going to have cuts and compete at a higher level? And again, I'm not going to voice my opinion on it, but I think that Vestal has to decide one way or the other and then stick to it, because this riding the fence thing is just driving everybody crazy. And if we decide which one we want to do and we stick to it, there will be less complaints. The music department works this way. There are different levels. There are tryouts for the higher groups. And if you don't make it, you don't make it. And there's no complaining because the parents know that that's how it's done. So I just think we should have something like that across the board. I understand that the educational board here is not a democracy, but I just ask that you please consider the number of letters that have been sent in voicing opinions about.
Bill, there's 10 seconds remaining.
Versus the situation that has been caused by one parent. And hopefully you've read our letters to know what I'm talking about, since we have to be so vague here. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you. The next person is Diana Drew. Diana, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name's Diana Drew. I reside at 3209 Knapp Road in Vestal. I don't want to echo too much of what I've heard. I've heard some pretty incredible letters tonight, so I appreciate that. I would also like to echo what the woman before me said in saying that I don't envy you, right? As board members, I don't think that you're in the easiest position whatsoever. I do take issue, however, with the way that certain things have been communicated, specifically at the very top. Quite honestly, when I first heard that there even was a committee that possibly had a parent on it, the decision-making process had already ended. The idea that this was all done in secrecy and there was no transparency, I take great issue with. Not to mention the fact I am a school teacher, and I also have 2 kids that we were able to put into private school while one is still at Vestal. And to see the difference side by side is like night and day. To see my 2 children who are able to attend in person daily overcome a lot of the deficiencies that came over last year. I have a student with an IEP, severe ADHD, and his teacher between this year and last year has said, this is a completely different person on paper, right? She got a behavior intervention plan that said, this doesn't even make sense. You're not describing the same person. My oldest, who was in 5th grade over at African Road, was struggling with depression. And it really, the killer was having his baby Monday, and then suddenly he can't go for 20 straight days. This is somebody who loves school, who excels at school, and is getting straight A's at his new school. The other thing that dawned on me was just the lack of creativity. It seems that many of the decisions that were made out of fear. They were made out of fear of what might happen if we don't, what might happen if we do, forgetting entirely that the primary purpose is not just to educate kids, but to prepare them for the world that they're going to be a part of. And a lot of that involves some of the social and mental health issues. We've been getting surveys about which phase and, transportation this, but nobody has reached out to say, hey, here's a survey about what is if you were to rate your mental health, what would it be? Where would it stand? The other thing is the creative use of space. Why have you not asked local construction workers to build those barriers for you?
Thank you for your comments.
Hey, Cliff, if you'll allow me, I just want to make mention, you know, I've heard some remarks about board members tuning out or not paying attention or not being involved. And I've been paying very close attention, and what I'm seeing is the board members who are looking down, and I know these board members are very dedicated folks, and I'm certain that they're writing notes and they're taking account of all the things that they're listening to right now. And so it's not a matter of not being involved or engaged, but actually being very much so. So I'm sorry, please continue on, Cliff.
The next person is Joe Nabuanic. Joe, can you hear us?
Joe, you're on mute.
Maybe it's not Joe, maybe it's his wife.
Or I'm sorry, we can't hear the speaker right now.
Can we switch back to them, give someone else a chance while they sort that out again?
Yes, we'll do that. Next person will be Christina Nush. Christina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
We'll set the timer for 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name's Christina Nush, and I live at 800 Overbrook Drive. I have 4 children in the Vestal School District. To say that I am disappointed in the district's handling of my children's education would be an understatement. You are completely ignoring the total health of our students. Their mental health has been far more damaged by this conservative approach than their physical health, and the damage will be with them for years to come. I understand, however, I don't agree with how conservative you were in September. However, the science does not support what we are still doing in this school district in March. Having a family member be in high risk for COVID is a concern for some. However, those families with those concerns should be 100% remote. Why do all our students have to suffer through this failed hybrid approach? When is the survey being sent for the middle and high school? None of my 4 children will benefit from K-5 going 4 days. You are failing a large amount of this district families by not planning on middle and high school being back in school more than 2 days a week. Do you want to explain to my kids that them going back to school full-time would mean the employees of the district would have to do more work? Most of us who have had a job during COVID, their workload has increased immeasurably. This is not an excuse for Vestal to not have our middle school and high school students in person more days. Why haven't you asked other districts how they have had their schools open for more than 1 day or 2 days a week? Ask them how they operate the cafeteria. Ask them how they provide transportation. This far into the pandemic, there are many resources available to Vestal with the planning on getting kids in school more. It's March. Schools in Broome County have been doing 5 days a week since September. Vestal can reach out to these other districts for advice. Wednesday is a day off for most students. My kids sleep in on Wednesdays. They help me with my job on Wednesday. They go to dance class early on Wednesday. They pick up their girlfriend. They go out for lunch. Our children deserve 5 days of education. We pay for 5 days of schooling for our kids. Teachers do not need an entire day each week for meetings and training. Wednesday is not a day to do this. These things happened for years when school was 5 days in person. COVID is not a reason to rob our children a day each week of the school they deserve to be given. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. We'll try Joe Nebuanic. Hello, Joe, can you hear us? I've asked him to unmute, but we'll come back to Joe. The next person is Julie Ryan. Hello, Julie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we'll set the timer for 3 minutes. Okay.
Thank you. I am a working mother of 4 and my husband works full-time. We reside at 2501 Saddlebrook Drive in Vestal. We feel that we do not owe the full amount of school taxes this year. Is there a Corona shutdown credit adjustment for the year? The kids are home the majority of the time. And we would like an adjustment for Vestal schools as we are still open only 2 days a week when the southern tier has moved forward and we are left behind in Vestal. Also, when will you start updating parents bi-weekly on Mondays and Wednesdays after you meet with Jason and Rebecca Kaufman with the Department of Health? Why do we have to make several calls and leave several messages to get a call back? Why not use a free app that parents can download and get more updates immediately instead of making all these ridiculous calls? We need 5 days a week in school, in person, immediately. The no work Wednesday is not working. It is a joke. We are extremely disappointed with these decisions. Finally, your decision making, not including any parents and students, your decisions for the middle school is making it very hard for my kids to learn. My student, Natalie Ryan, is in 7th grade, had all of her honor roll classes taken away because of all the poor decisions. She worked very hard, and because of you, all of those were taken away, and we are not sure why. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person will be Stephanie. Hello, Stephanie, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we'll set the timer for 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Like many parents that you're listening to, we also moved to Vestal because of the highly rated schools district. In August of last year, I made the choice that I removed my children from this school district while we still reside here. Well, it's been presented that most parents who were in my position that sent their children to Catholic school are privileged. However, we are not privileged. I pay half my adjusted gross income to now educate my children on top of my Vestal school taxes. This is actually less than what it was going to cost me to send them to a child care facility to attend Zoom meetings for school. So in a way, I'm saving money while providing my children with an education. Prior to COVID, we had problems with the school already. I put in writing an ask to have my children evaluated for an IEP. That was never granted. That is a violation of the law. I've sat and listened to every single board meeting over the past year and listened to you discuss the recommendations as if they are law, yet the actual education law was not followed for my children. They were left behind. My children were illiterate, while the school principal tried passing them along grade after grade and not offering them any wraparound care. We went to the Catholic schools of Broome County, who within their first week of education evaluated my children and gave them wraparound services. They are now reading at grade levels because of the services provided. They have less staff, far less staff. They have about a 16th of the staff that is available at Vestal. They don't have the resources that Vestal does. There are 4 fewer students in my kids' classes than there were at Vestal. The square footage is smaller. They've been in class every day, wearing masks, socially distanced, following all of the recommendations and guidelines that have been placed on the schools with no COVID cases that have occurred. My children now enjoy school. I also work in healthcare. When this happened, healthcare had that realization that you talk about. Our colleagues, ourselves, contracting, having complications from, being hospitalized and dying from COVID became our reality. That was not something that was fictitious. That was not something that was a possibility. It was our reality, and it has happened. We stepped up to the plate, and what the school district offered in return was we had the option to keep working in healthcare and keep all of you healthy and keep all of you alive, or to take care of our own children because you failed us. As far as the board meetings go, I have watched and rewatched every single one of them. And Mr. Nunez, respectfully, you should go back and watch them too. Even though tonight people are paying a little bit more attention, in the past, I have even watched a unanimous vote cast when a member was gone.
Thank you so much for your comments. We'll bring the next person in. Travis, this says a lot of time. It's okay, right? It's different. Okay. Hello, can you hear us? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we'll set it
My,
short, 3 minutes.
all right, my name is Bill Scheck. I'm a Vestal resident. I prefer to keep my address personal. The reason behind me wanting to speak is my son's IEP. You stated that on Wednesdays that they're set aside for potential special education meetings as well as steer committee meetings, and I'm assuming I think they're called AIM meetings, which I was told. I guess the reason I had this question is since August of 2020, since the beginning of the school year started, I expressed my concerns about my son's IEP and his reading disabilities with not only the school psychologist, the school principal, his special education teacher, as well as I eventually got a hold of the special education director after I tried to call the superintendent's office and I got a secretary. Then she returned my call. I was told that my concerns would be expressed at these steer meetings and these AIM meetings. But after watching countless, I guess, Board of Education meetings, I've never heard anything ever brought up about kids with IEPs and any plan going forward to get them in school more than 1 day a week. I guess my biggest concern is, the lack of transparency. I've wasted countless hours calling the school, expressing my concerns. And I guess I'm just a little frustrated why from the get-go, kids with IEPs weren't incorporated with the more mentally severe handicapped children who got to go to school 5 days a week. When I spoke this to the special education director, I even asked her about potentially comp time to send my son to school to get extra in-person help for his reading disability. And she said she was gonna bring it up at one of these meetings, which then I was told that it would be impossible for that to happen. And ironically, just last week, I was told that that was always an option, even though she told me it was not. I guess I'm extremely frustrated. My son, he started off, we paid thousands of dollars to get him into private tutoring to increase his reading abilities. And since moving to Vestal, which we chose because we were told they were great with children with disabilities, he's actually deterred. I can't say it's 100% school's fault. I know COVID has a negative impact on everything. But I mean, that's my 2 cents on that. When it comes to the whole mask mandate, I know in the meeting earlier, you guys insisted that it was wear the mask and 6 feet. I'm just a little bit confused because looking at the board meeting now, there's 4 people in the room and nobody has masks on, but they're 6 feet apart. I'm just wondering, why that's an issue inside the classroom if it's not an issue inside the board meeting right
10
now.
seconds, please.
Sorry, what?
10 seconds remaining.
Okay. No, that's all I need. And just like, when are these issues going to be addressed or questions answered?
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Travis, I need help with this one. It's not, doesn't come up. Remove. Okay. That's fine. Thanks. Okay, so we have a next person. Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, we'll
Can you
set
hear
the timer for 3 minutes.
Thank you for your time. My name is Micah Kaler, live at 2625 Lyndhurst Drive. We currently have a daughter in Vestal High School in 11th grade. I just want to say that I'm very concerned about the lack of there being really any kind of a plan, or at least communication of a plan to the parents as far as when we're going to start trying to get the kids back into school. I don't understand why at this point it's not been an option for parents to send their kids 3 days a week, 4 days a week. Parents who are worried about COVID still and transmission and all that, they could hold back and keep their kids remote. But I think parents who are a little more willing to work with the restrictions, masks, and everything else, we should be able to have our children have more opportunity to have in-person instruction. Our daughter is on an IEP. Ninth grade was a tough year. She did very well. 10th grade started out very, very well. Started out to be a very good year. And as soon as COVID hit and the remote instruction started, we saw an immediate decline in our daughter's performance. School-wise and just socially. It's taking a toll on everybody. I get that, but I do believe there needs to be a more flexible plan to allow parents to test the limits and get their kids back into school. I agree that students on IEPs probably should be prioritized to have more days of in-person instruction, but part of me also thinks that's kind of unfair, and all kids should have an equal opportunity to have just as many days of in-person instruction. I think the sports, while it is very important. Several years ago, when my oldest daughter was in the Vestal School District, I spoke at several board meetings when we were fighting to keep after-school sports alive. So I do believe that sports are very important, but I think it's just wrong to even start to consider about how we can have after-school sports and have these activities when we can't even get our kids in school 5 days a week. I don't think the priorities are quite where they need to be for the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. The next person is Natalie R.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We'll set the timer for 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Natalie Ryan, and I reside at 250 Saddlebrook Drive. I am in 7th grade at Vestal Middle School. We have been learning at home for almost a year now, and it is very hard to learn. The things that you decide to imply make it very hard to learn, not only for me, but my fellow students. As you know, I got into my honor roll academics, and they have been taken away from me, and I worked very hard for them. There are schools within 30 minutes that are going full-time, so I don't understand why we cannot. We are no different from them. It is very hard to learn this way, and changes need to be made so that we are able to learn better. It is very difficult to learn at home with my 3 younger siblings, and it would make it very much easier to learn at school, where I can ask questions and make comments right then and there, instead of waiting weeks for an email from a teacher. Things are hard now, and I understand that, but other people and schools are doing full-time, so I don't understand why we cannot. Many students are struggling at times, including me. Science proves that it is safe to go back full-time, so I don't understand why we cannot. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next person is Joan Enright. Hello, Joan. Can you hear us?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We'll set the timer for 3 minutes.
Okay. So my name is Joan Enright. I have a 6-year-old who attends Glenwood Elementary. We specifically bought this house for this district. We uprooted our lives to come here to get an education through Vestal. My son got not even 3/4 of the way through kindergarten, was pulled. I don't understand how you explain this to a 5-year-old. This is the foundation of his education. To now him going 2 days a week, to be frustrated, to be hurt by this. I just don't understand how you're going to look these kids in the face when they come back. I don't understand. And I don't understand why he can't go 5 days a week. My husband just had COVID. We got out of quarantine. They're fine. They have no symptoms. My husband never even had a temperature. These things just they don't work. Okay. And the science behind it, they're saying the kids can go back to school. I don't understand why we're not getting answers. We pay a lot of money for our children to go there. We trust our children to come there with you and spend, honestly, more time with you than sometimes they do with their own family. And that really needs to be taken seriously. I since had to leave my career of 10 years as a dental hygienist to now be a teacher to my child. The impacts that this has on people's families, you have no idea what it has done and the changes that it has literally changed people's lives. You know, we're making sacrifices, and I feel like you guys need to make the sacrifices now and let these kids go back to school and give them an education that they deserve. The science says that they can go back. I feel like enough is enough. You have no idea the tolls that this is taking on the families in this area, to the point where my kid's crying. I cry because we just can't take it anymore. I mean, these are serious things that you really need to sit down and think about at the end of the day, and really take all these parents very, very seriously. This is not, you shouldn't just be playing with people's lives like this. Okay. We all take this very seriously, but this is a free country and we deserve to have the option to send our kids to school if we so choose. If people want to keep their children home, that is their decision as well. Please take this very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. The next person is Jessica L. Jessica, can you hear us okay? Hello, Jessica.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We'll set the timer for 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. My name's Jessica. I'm a 9th grade student at Vestal High School, and I know that I, along with multiple others, have sent emails and talked about this issue, tried to talk about this issue on board meetings, and even though we're not allowed to bring it up at this time, I really just want to ask all of you guys to please look at all the emails we've sent you and what we're trying to push towards you, and please take that into consideration with your decision. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Our next one is Jeffrey Wall. Hello, Jeffrey. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We'll set the timer for 3 minutes.
Jeffrey Wall, Vestal graduate, 2001, 1205 Tracy Creek Road. So Mario is speaking about how much the board has done. I think it's apparent, not only as a parent of 3 who I've had to poll. I'm a retired Navy chief. I know I've spoken to the board previously, and I plan on running for a seat on the board. One thing that's apparent is we're not seeing the work because the board hasn't done anything. So I would love to know, Sylvia, I see your face and I see you're maybe upset by that comment, but we're not seeing the work. The kids aren't back in school. Mario's saying this is the first time you're able to do and hear our voices. You've read our words, but you haven't heard our voices. The technology has been there. I've been teaching on Zoom and had these kind of conferences for a year now. We're a year into the pandemic, and this is the first time you are hearing our voices tonight. Why is that? You've expected the kids to be learning through computers, kindergartners, first graders, second graders, since September. And yet we are no further to getting them in school. And you're talking possibly March 29th. I'm looking at your faces now. You can't see ours. The technology has been there. 3 of you are going to be incumbents. If you expect to be reelected, what have you done to deserve your votes to get back on the board if you want to be reelected? You are the community's voices. You are the only people that can, we just talked about tonight, an $89 million budget. You guys said, I believe, Matthew, you were talking about a $900,000 shortfall, correct, sir? What has the board done to close that gap? What has this board done for this community? Our kids are not in school. What have you done? What have you done for this community? Can any of you answer any of that? What have you done for us, the people who have elected you to this board? So far, I don't know. You can't get our kids in school. You can't close a $900,000 budget gap. I honestly don't know what you've done for us. And if you can't look yourselves in the mirror and say, we've done something, why are you on the board? Gino, I see you smirking, but I honestly would ask you, sir, you're up for re-election. What have you done for the board? What have you done for the community you sit there representing? I'm asking each and every one of you on the board, what are you doing for us? If you can't answer the question, get off the board and allow someone to sit and do something for the community.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. The next person we have is Becky Greenstrom. Hello, Becky. Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And we'll set the timer for 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks. My name is Becky Greenstrom, and I live at 3116 Belmont Ave. And I actually just wanted to say thank you to all of the teachers and staff and administrators and board members who have worked so hard throughout this year to provide an education for our children under some extremely challenging circumstances. I've seen how hard my children's teachers are working to balance remote and in-person learning for children with a wide variety of needs. And I know that teachers are working well beyond their contracted hours to adapt lesson plans for multiple modes of instruction, learn new technology skills, and make changes on the fly when they've been quarantined or when busing is suddenly unavailable. Many of those teachers are balancing the same challenges as other working parents in balancing work and childcare and guiding children through remote learning. Similarly, I know that principals and district administrators are under great pressure from all angles, and there are no perfect answers. I actually really appreciate the cautious approach that Vestal has taken so far. And to be honest, I'm nervous about the fact that we're increasing the number of days in person at a time when case numbers are still so high in Broome County. I understand that this is a compromise that is necessary, and I hope that for the health of our children, teachers, families, and communities, that we will continue to see no evidence of transmission in schools. Thank you to everyone who is working through all of the available information and balancing competing interests to make decisions that ensure an education for our children in a safe and healthy environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. The next person is Sandra Lumpkin. Hello, Sandra. Can you hear us?
Hello. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And we'll set the timer for 3 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you. Hi,
Thank
my
you.
name is Sandra Lumpkin. I reside at 219 Noyes Road in Vestal. I have a 4th grader and a 9th grader, so I'm dealing with elementary issues and high school issues. Like a lot of the people that have spoke up today, we chose this district and we actually just moved to the Glenwood area, but chose to stay in Vestal for obvious reasons. I think I reiterate a lot of what a lot of people have said by saying that the Wednesdays are a huge disappointment. I have children who really have nothing to do on Wednesdays. The unfortunate part of that is it's also steamrolled into a situation where, as a registered nurse, I don't have a lot of options. Like someone else said, it's our job to keep people safe. The hospital relies on us. I can't do that remote. And I'm pretty sure the women that I labor don't want me to do that remote. So we've had to step up and continue on. What are we supposed to do with our children? A lot of people are saying that school is not meant to be a daycare. And I understand that. I chose to stay at home with the kids while they were younger and pursue a career as they started in school. And now we're still having to fulfill those responsibilities while maintaining some kind of routine with the kids. All I think most of us are asking for is a choice. If you choose to send your kids to school, That's your option. If you choose to keep your kids home on full remote and you have those capabilities, then that's an option. It seems to be such a bipolar issue, and it seems that the options are pretty simple. And I think you proved that with the slides on the K through 5. About 10% of people are wanting to stay home, and that's it. You're talking about honor roll students that I've had. Now I have one of those kids in the 20% who are failing one or more subjects in the high school. It's unfortunate that he's received a phone call stating that they're going to help him. They're going to get him up to the passing grade. All he has to do is stay after school for 2 hours on a day that he's already in school and go to a common area with the other kids who are failing until they get him up to speed. He's 15 years old and he's a boy. And his statement is, maybe if we had just done this to start with and I had in-person training, I wouldn't have struggled so much. So I think the kids are speaking also. So I think it's really just a choice that we're looking for. Unfortunately, with the lack of communication, the lack of consistency, a lot of us were forced to resign professional careers. Unfortunately, the local university where we put out nursing schools has lost me as a professor because I do need to stay home and take care of these kids. How can we expect other people to take care of our kids when they're not even allowed to go to school? We're supposed to be protecting people. Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
So just so the board knows, that exhausts all the individuals that had their hands up. We do have a number of individuals that have already spoken and their hands are still up. So I will bring them in and see if they can continue on to speak. All right, so the first one is, it is changing right now. So Diana Drew, do you still want to speak, Diana? Okay, you can bring me in. Diana, did you want to speak again? Hello, Diana? No, it doesn't appear to. Christina Nush, would you like some more time, Christina?
No, I don't
Okay.
need any more time.
Okay, I just saw your hand was still up, so okay, thank you.
No, I don't know why it was, but
Okay,
I'm good.
thanks. Let's see. Stephanie, did you want to speak again?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks. So we have Katie Nabawanek.
Hey,
Katie,
can you hear? Yeah, can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
We'll set the timer for 3 minutes, okay?
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, my name is Katie Nabawanek. I reside on State Line Road in Vestal. Thank you for coming back to me, giving me a chance to talk tonight. I don't want to be redundant tonight. I know a lot has been said, but I also feel it's necessary to take advantage of the platform we've been given tonight. So thank you for that. I'm shaking. I'm sorry. I'm afraid my computer's going to freeze again, so bear with me. First of all, I'd like to thank specifically Christina Pierce for being a voice throughout this time. You continue to ask questions. You continue to think outside the box. I don't envy any of you all for being in the positions you're in, but I do believe that some were taking it a little more to heart than others. And Christina, thank you for your efforts here. We appreciate it. To the administration, I want to make it clear that any of my frustrations I share tonight are strictly with the administration. This has nothing to do with teachers or support staff or bus drivers. I have advocated for months now that I want my children in school with these teachers because I do believe that they are the best around. I basically want to say what hasn't been said yet is that Vestal, you should have been trailblazers throughout this time period. We are the best, most resourceful district in our community, and you were given an opportunity to be leaders throughout this pandemic, throughout this year. And I feel like you have dropped the ball completely for families that can't advocate for themselves, for children that can't advocate for themselves, for families that have been advocating over and over and over again. We have not been heard. We have not been spoken to or answered. And there are districts that are smaller than you that have less than we do as a district that are making it happen. They are being creative. They are thinking outside the box. They are rearranging. They have just made it happen for these children. And I don't just mean bringing them to school in person. There are ways to meet needs outside of that. So I just really am disappointed in the fact that Vestal had a chance to be a leader throughout this time, and we weren't. It's an embarrassment right now it has been to say my children attended Vestal throughout this time. With that said, we're a family of 5. We were proud to be members of the Vestal School District. We have since moved. We continue to own property in Vestal, and I am a taxpayer, but it makes me very sad to say that I have pulled my children out of the Vestal School District, which is something we've all been very proud of attending for many years now. I feel like you have failed my children. You are failing children that don't have a voice right now. You are failing families that can't advocate for themselves. Case in point, my Zoom has froze 5 times tonight, me just trying to get on to share my voice. So thank you for the opportunity to talk tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Let's see, we do have a few new people that have their hands raised. This is Steve Ribello. Hello, Steve, can you hear us?
Yes. I don't want to bring up the same things that everybody's bringing up as far as Wednesdays and middle school and high school coming back. But I did want to bring up one new point, and that is the mention of when students are moved to quarantine or teachers are moved to quarantine, that there would not continue to be any online education for them, that it would be asynchronous. Other districts are doing that. Other districts that are 4 days and have students that move into quarantine are offering instruction, online instruction for them. And I would like to the board and the administration to consider that and talk with the other districts about how they're making that happen if you have questions. That is all.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. We have another person, Jim Ryan. Jim, can you hear us? Hello, Jim.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We'll set the time.
This is Jim Ryan. I just want to thank you for watching the meeting. I appreciate your time and all your efforts and all the comments. I just wanted to say that that this is an imperfect situation. The world is dealing with this, the country is dealing with this, and the county's dealing with this, and you guys are doing the best you can. It hasn't been perfect, but you're doing the best you can. I work at a company. We're doing the best we can. We've been doing it since March, and all you can do is be creative and try to do what you can and do the best for the kids and the families. And it's not going to be perfect. And I just want to let you know that there's many of us that appreciate what you guys have done for the students, for the teachers, the staff. We appreciate what you've done in terms of athletics, to have sports available and to have some clubs and things available. So, I know you're hearing a lot of complaints tonight, but I want to let you know there's another whole group of people that appreciate what you're doing. Know it's not perfect. Know that, we're not going to get it right every time, but you're looking out for the best interest of the people and the family, and we appreciate that.
Great. Thank you,
So
Jim.
thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We have another person. AJ, can you hear us?
Hi, it's actually Danielle.
Oh, okay. Hi, Danielle. We'll set the timer for 3 minutes.
Well, I am a working mom and I started this meeting extremely late. My only question is, I've missed a lot, I know, but as much as I'm pushing for I hope my kids are going back to school, if they are not, and if this doesn't get passed where they're going back to 4 days a week, I don't understand why I'm only having, he's only having 2 Zoom meetings a day. The entire rest of the day, when my son has to come to work with me, I can't, it's very hard to multitask being a working mom and a teacher all in one day. I don't think they're getting nearly even close to what they could be getting for like fully remote. 2 meetings a day isn't enough. There's so many other districts where they're on every single class with their teacher involved and actually learning versus here's a couple assignments and here moms and dads figure it out. It's extremely frustrating. He went from being a great student to not wanting to do anything. It's just, I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with this. I jumped in this really, really late, but I guess I wanted my opinion to be heard is all.
Thank you, and thanks for your comments. So we still have, looks like 5 people with their hands raised, and they've all spoken before. So I'll bring them in one at a time to see if they'd like to speak again. This is Stephanie. Stephanie, would you like to make another comment?
Again, no, I don't need
No?
to.
You okay? Okay. All right. Thank you. We have Sherry Hammaker with her hand up. Hello, Sherry. Your hand is still up. Would you like to speak again?
Yes,
Okay.
just real quick. For my son Damon, so he's at Glenwood. I love Glenwood. I love the teachers. They're doing a great job. His special ed teacher has such a great relationship with him. He's come so far from where he was in kindergarten last year when he went in, from screaming and running out of the room to being able to function, being able to listen. And I don't want to leave Glenwood. I don't want to leave Vestal. We have loved Vestal, but we will have to make a decision if we are not back to 5 days. Certainly for the fall that if we are not 5 days, we will probably have to put him somewhere that is 5 days that's going to teach him in person. I hate to do that because we've taken 2 years to build these relationships. Again, when he's in school, he's got these great people around him, but he needs the structure desperately. He's like I said, has an IEP and also behavior intervention plan. So that I just wanted to mention that. I'm wondering if there's a lot of kids with IEPs that are thinking, if this is how it's going to go next year, that we will have to make that decision. That's all.
Thank you, and thanks for your comments. See, we have Stephanie.
No, Stephanie's already started. She's not.
Yeah, I think for the 4th time, I'm good.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'll take your hand down. Sorry about that. And what was AJ? What was Danielle? Danielle, your hand is, this is Joan Unright. Joan, would you want to speak again?
Hi, this is Joan's husband, Kurt. And I just wanted to say thank you guys very much for this open forum tonight. I truly appreciate you guys lending us your ear. But I did want to say this is a tall ask, what we're saying to open, because I know we could find reasons and regulations in the guidances from the CDC and the Department of Health that we could stay shut and not open just yet. And what we're asking for is with the availability of vaccines is that the teachers can be vaccinated and be protected that way. And with our kids, the virus doesn't affect them nearly like it does older populations. And if it could be left up to the parents, whether or not to attend, and like some other parents said, basically parents can have the choice to either do remote learning exclusively or take the risk and open and basically get back to normal. But and I know it's a tall ask, and thank you guys again for your ear. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Let's see, we have Debbie. Hello, Debbie, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We'll set the timer for 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Debbie Casson, 959 Tracy Creek Road. We also chose our home in Vestal 25 years ago, And the reason we did because of the reputation of the school district. Being an educator myself and also my husband, that was our number one priority. Pick the best school in this area to raise our kids. We were blessed with 3 beautiful daughters. And right now, 2 of our daughters are one of our daughters has graduated from Vestal. Actually, 2 have graduated, 1 is a senior. And then our oldest daughter is also a Penn State graduate with a biomedical engineering degree and now holds a project manager position at age 22 in an amazing company. Our second daughter, Sarah, is a junior at Baruch College in Manhattan. She has an internship at Visions Federal Credit Union and also the New York Times. And why are they so successful? Because of the education that they received from the Vestal Central School District. Everyone from Bob Reed, the bus driver, who picked every one of my girls up, to the cafeteria ladies that fed them, to the aides that helped them when they cried for their mother in kindergarten and assured them they will be okay, to the wonderful teachers, including Mrs. Nunez, everybody, and their wonderful principals and their administrators and the board, who always kept high excellence and stakes in this community and their education. So right now I'm like many parents and I have a senior right now. And yes, am I sad for her? Yes, very sad that she is not getting the senior year that we all remember. But I am very happy to know that she knows this isn't anybody's fault, that COVID is a pandemic, that the Vestal administration, the teachers and the staff did not cause COVID. And I feel every parent needs to realize that. They also need to realize that we didn't make the rules or the mandates. And I feel like everyone that I'm looking at on this Zoom right now has worked countless hours to do what's best for our Vestal kids, keeping in mind the safety of our kids and our teachers and our bus drivers and all the staff. So I also am an educator, and Union Endicott just started going 4 days this week. I'm happy about that. I know that's Vestal's on that horizon. And as many parents feel right now, I think we're all feeling very helpless. So what I'm going to suggest to parents that are feeling helpless is to volunteer and do something. I'm the co-chair of the After Prom All-Nighter.
10 seconds.
Oh dear. All right. And there are plenty of opportunities to volunteer. So I'm doing what I can do to try to make the best out of this global pandemic. And I encourage all parents to do the same. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. We have Joan Enright is the last. No, now we have no more hands raised. So that concludes all of the voice of the public from this end.
All right, thank you, Cliff. All right, so future board meetings, Tuesday, March 23rd, that'll be a regular meeting. That will be via Zoom still. We still anticipate having a special meeting that a date is still to be determined regarding the budget. The next meeting after that will be Monday, April 19th. That will be a Monday meeting as opposed to a regular Tuesday night meeting. And that's in coordination with the annual BOCES meeting that'll be the following day. And that will also continue to be a Zoom meeting also. The next meeting after that will be a Tuesday, May 4th. And that's again, a regular 6 p.m. meeting. And I don't believe that we have any guidance as far as how the meetings are going to be held from that point on. So we're holding off on what the next steps are there. And then the Tuesday, May 18th will be the annual meeting and the vote. And that will be in the board conference room via Zoom. And we don't have a specific time for that one. I believe that one's going to be later in the evening. And so from there, can I have a motion to adjourn into anticipated executive session?
Mario, can I make one comment before we adjourn?
Yeah, go ahead, Christina.
Thank you. I just really wanted to thank you for making, whoever made this happen. I really, really appreciate hearing actual voices. And I hope that the other board members, I'm sure they do feel the same way. The letters were the best that we had at the time, but actually hearing from people is great. So look forward to hearing more from people.
Hey, thank you, Christina. So can I have a motion to adjourn into anticipated executive session to review the recommendations from the Committee on Special Education and the Committee on Preschool Education to review employment status of 2 staff members and tenure recommendations? Sylvia and John, questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? We are adjourned into executive session.